Hello and welcome to the Comics Pals at a special time of 1:30 p.m. Eastern. And it's special because today is a special day around these parts. We are lucky enough to be graced by the presence
Get up to
of
six
the
accounts per
man
household
who
and unlimited
has
DVR
the
space included
absolute
for YouTube
best
TV. Try it free.
collection
Terms
of
apply. Cancel
omnibuy
anytime.
on YouTube,
I
bar
wish you
none.
could watch the college
Are
football
you
game
guys hearing
you
that?
actually care
Yeah,
about.
I am hearing that.
I think it's
And
coming from your side.
on ESPN,
Is it me?
they have the
Is it?
college
It
football
might
that
that
you
there's
love.
probably an
You
ad up
can
on a
customize your
window that's
channel
coming through.
lineup with
Yeah.
Sling, and you can watch on your phone. That sounds so easy. Now, how do we get out of here? Follow me. I love this. Yeah.
If you just close
Oh,
what
I'm
goes
sorry
on,
about that.
you're
Very
good. You're good.
unprofessional. That was the. I was trying to find where you when you sent me that link and opened up another link, and I'm like, why? What is it? Sorry
Oh
about that.
no.
That is perfectly fine. I was busy praising you and praising your unbelievable collection that we can see behind you and your passion for comics, a passion that has penetrated so deeply that you have over 100,000 subscribers on YouTube. That is an accomplishment that very few of us who are in the comics YouTube space will ever accomplish. So, really, this is a moment to say thank you and bow down to Uncanny Omar of near mint condition. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, it's so professional that I couldn't find where my I was in IT for 20 years before doing this for a living, and I was like, "Where's that sound? Is that me? Oh, that's me." Didn't see the second tab open. Sorry about that. Thank
I've
you so much for having me on, guys. For even asking me to be on here with you all. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, Tyler.
I was gonna say, Omar, don't worry about it. I've done that on the show before too. So this is
A lot racier
normal for the
stuff.
show.
I've done a lot worse on my show. I think I've opened up tabs that should not have been opened.
The fun of being live, right?
Not a good time.
You never know what you're going to get when you press that live button and just start tabbing around and you get comfortable. I find like you get a little too comfy and things can happen.
Well, when I share, like I always, when we do catalogs or looking at the slideshows that we put together, I always got to check, like, oh, do I got to make sure I don't have my favorites tab open or all these weird things and we pop it up. I don't need people to know that much about me.
Well,
But
one thing I do know about you is that you were already live today for 2 hours.
I was. So thank you guys. Yeah, I do a Saturday live stream every Saturday. Have been doing it since 2020. Like, guys, remember that weird and crazy year when everybody was home for a couple of weeks? Is Yeah, I missed people. I wasn't going to work, so I was like, okay, first weekend. It was funny because it was like happening at my. We were having a get together for my birthday, and everybody canceled because like that Thursday, everybody went home, right? And, hey, stay away from people. So I started having a live stream that March of 2020, and I remember thinking like, well, we'll see what this goes. Maybe I'll just do it for a couple months, and it's kind of become it's become a part of my channel. So every Saturday I do it.
Is that when we started going live too, Sean? Around a year later, I think, right? Yeah.
Sorry, we?
Yeah, you weren't even here then. We started going live
Dude,
2 years
2020.
ago.
Wow.
I don't remember exactly what year that was. So.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting because a lot of people around that time sort of had the same thought that you did, where it was like, you know what? I'll go live. Or a lot of people started posting on YouTube around that time because they just had all this free time. And I think what people found was that channels like yours were safe havens. It was like somewhere you could go to be with other people who were in the same boat as you. And it was a beautiful thing.
I think you're absolutely right about that. And I remember when, like, yeah, even celebrities were doing it. Like John Krasinski started this thing, and I remember he was going live, and I'm like, oh, Krasinski's trying to steal my viewers. What the heck, man? Can I get a pass, dude? Like, yeah, and as you all probably know, you've been around for a few years, that YouTube does not promote live streams. Like they hate it. It is horrible for the algorithm. That's why like big channels that have over 1 million subscribers have no live streams. They keep that. They either make another channel or they do Twitch or something different. And I remember people asking me, like, does that ruin your algorithm because you have pre-recorded videos? And I was like, yeah, but I just got to the point where I don't care. And I'm still at that point where I just don't care. Like, it's whatever people want to watch. It's what I need too. Because especially now that this is what I do, I don't have an office I go to. I don't have work commute. I don't talk to people that, on a daily basis where you're at work. And I miss that because I'm very social. So doing live streams really helps me connect not just with my viewers but also like people that just have random questions about comics, and it's been really cool, and I enjoy doing it, and I need it. So yeah, screw whatever YouTube algorithm says.
Would you say that your channel has expanded since you started going live, or do you feel like it's slowed your growth?
um that's such a tough question to answer because 2020 when I start, so I've been doing live streams since 2017, so I've had the channel since 2015.
Mhm.
2016 is when we started doing some live streams. 2017 is when we started doing more live streams. 2020 is when I started doing the Saturday live stream. In 2020, yeah, you got all kinds of viewers and people that normally weren't watching at home. And 2020 was the year of growth for a lot of YouTubers that had been around before
Mhm.
2020. And I mean, just looking at it realistically, it wasn't going to last, right? I think a lot of us or I'd like to think a lot of us looked at it and be like, okay, well, let's, and I did. And it was also the year that I lost my job. And I was thinking, my wife and I were thinking about doing like, if I could do this full time. So I had to think about that. I had to think about, okay, what is the percentage of people that I can still hold after everybody else is like, well, there goes all the extra money I got from the government. There's goes all the extra time I got spending at home. And if I could still hold on to like 10% of those people that still watch, could I be doing this realistically? So in a way, there was a growth. Oh my gosh, yeah. I mean, yeah, there is no lie. I think anybody that had a channel back then, YouTube was just promoting all these different things, and
Yeah.
I was already a niche of a niche to begin with, because like people, there's comic book channels, right? Like there's comic book channels, but I specialized in collected editions, which is already a niche of a niche. Like anime is huge. Comic books is a lot smaller margin than anime and video games and movies. So you're already talking about a small amount of people. And then on top of that, it's like, oh, he's not talking about single issues. He's not talking about the value of these books. He's actually talking about like these storylines and how they're collected in different formats. So that's already like a smaller percentage. But somehow I toughed it out and I was like, well, we'll see where this goes.
I love that. I really do. And I know like we had Sal on here from Comic Pop a
I
few
love that
months
guy.
ago.
Yeah, he's
Yes.
such a cool dude. I love that dude. Yeah.
Sal is fantastic. And I feel privileged that I've now been able to speak to him and you.
You're putting
But
me up there with Sal. Don't
of
do that.
course.
No,
Of
he's
course. What are you talking about? Don't look. Don't you don't have to. You could do the humble thing if you want to. But I know you.
but like to me, Sal, like I've met Sal's at conventions
Yeah.
for the last 5 years now. No, oh my god, no, since 2018. Uh, and it was one of those moments that you eye each other up, and he's a lot taller than I am, and he was like, so I said it first. I'm like Sal, and he was like, "You're Omar," and I'm like, "Yeah." Yeah, dude. So we met at what was it? I think it was Baltimore Comic Con the first time we met. We were both in line for Brian K. Vaughan, I think. And super down to earth. You guys have talked to him. You know how he
Yeah.
is. Super knowledgeable. Those are my kind of people that I love hanging out with. Positive and his own thoughts with a positive spin. And also just super knowledgeable when it comes to comics and stories. And not a big fan of collected editions, and that's okay. He does love single issues though. So yeah, I'm a big fan of him. I like Sal. He's a good guy.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love the fact that, there are channels like yours and Sal's and others. Comics Are Dope is another channel that we love
Oh,
around
BJ,
here.
I love BJ. Yeah, I'm
BJ
glad
is
you got to.
amazing. Yeah.
Yeah,
Good friend of BJ's a good friend to me. So
that's what's up.
um but like I'm glad that there's this pocket, right, on YouTube for comics that is positive on the front end and behind the scenes. Because without going into like specific names, certainly we're aware of channels that really try to highlight the negativity, right? And they put the spotlight on the stuff that they don't like, and they're courting people who seem to be angry about the state of comics. Whereas I look at you and I look at Sal, and we do that over here as well. And you guys are like, hey, we love this stuff. We're passionate about comics, and we try to promote that. You guys on your channel, you promote comics through collected editions, and you're promoting the positivity of these runs that you love that mean so much to you. And that's something we need more of. So I'm glad that you guys are able to get as big as you are while being positive.
Oh, thank you.
I like it.
I,
If you're listening on audio platforms, Omar's face is a little confused right now. He's like, but actually, I really hate comics, and man, I just wish
Well,
people could focus on that for a second.
let's be real though. Negativity spreads, and it's so much easier, to find things you hate about something, whether it's movies, video games, books, or comics, toys, whatever it is, and crap on something, than it is to find the good in things. And it's not like I love everything. There are certain things that I don't like about
Me
comics,
too.
certain stories, and I don't shy away from telling people. Uh, but I do find it to be harder to stay positive about things. And those in the channels that you speak of, I mean, I've seen those growths, and I've seen how big they are, because negativity spreads and people like being negative, and then you become just an echo chamber of like negativity, and everybody repeats things. And I know that, sometimes I get viewers that ask me questions in a way that their favorite YouTubers would be saying something bad
Right.
about something, and I can always point them out. I never call them out because I don't care what other people watch. That's cool. It's up to them. Uh, but it's like, they're hating on something without even reading it or without even watching it. And it's like, yeah, I like having conversations with people that actually don't like something and have a difference of opinion. Those make, like, that to me makes life interesting. Like, I love that. I love that. That's why I started Old Reader, New Reader, like back in 2016, where not all of us share the same thoughts about stories. We come from different generations. And yeah, and I think a lot of it has to do with my age. I'm 46 now, and I think that being that edgy 20-year-old, I was kind of done with that. Like, oh man, I hate this. It's so edgy of me to think of this. Like, I think I was done with that part of my life, and now was ready to move on and share the things that I do like and I'm passionate about when it comes to the world of comics. And luckily for me, companies have put these in beautiful collections. Finally catching up to where Europe has been for decades.
Sure.
Those
Amen.
European hardcovers are so nice.
Yeah.
I
I
just
mean,
get rid of
they looked at all that when they
Yeah.
got like absolute editions and things like that, slipcases. We're finally getting that kind of stuff here. Berserk, Deluxe. Oh my gosh, I think it's beautiful.
I saw that Mitch Jarrett's teased a new Mr. Miracle with a
Mhm.
slipcase that's like a
Yeah,
cage that it
slipcase
comes
looks
like. I'm
cool.
like, oh, I gotta buy it again. I mean,
Because
sure.
when they have gimmicky things like that, I'm like,
Yeah.
should I triple, quadruple dip? Probably.
Speaking of triple and quadruple dipping, we are going to get into everything regarding collected editions because I have some questions for you. The listeners have been writing in because they've been excited about you coming on. So we've got some questions from them. We've got a live chat full of people who are fans of yours and ours who want to, ask questions. So we're going to get into all that in just a moment. I do want to take a quick second, though. If you guys aren't familiar with Omar, this is somehow the first time you're hearing of the Uncanny Omar. Near mint condition is the channel. Almost 10 years worth of effort and videos and passion. Go join, go subscribe, be one of the 100,000 plus who have made that decision to subscribe to his channel. They're doing great stuff over there. They were just live 2 hours ago and they're here with us now. So thank you so much for that. Make sure you go subscribe to Near Mint Condition. As for us, if this is the first time you are seeing us because you're here for Omar, thank you for being here. We're the Comics Pals. We appreciate you being a part of this. We're live every Saturday at 10:15 a.m. Eastern, Thursdays at 6 p.m. for Pals Pulls. That's where we review comics. And really quick, I want to say thank you to every person who supports us on Patreon real quick. I want to give a shout out to the Palsverse. So I want to say a quick thank you to our Palsverse legends, Thunderstruck Rebecca Alejandro, the Hound of Justice Atomic Hound, Starcross Catherine Stars, Red Spiral Spiral Storm, and Orseus the Waterbound. And I want to give another thank you to our Palsverse members, the Night Stalker Harris Ajinski, Brian Demolisher Del Pozo, Kefis the Incorruptible, Momentum Mike Elliott, Dan the Truth Trudeau, Jalen the Sanguine Sorcerer, Marley Manastorm, Slow Flow Dameron, Christian Uncaged Harriet, Always Laughing, the Spear of Justice, Izzy Spears, the Great Destroyer, Hyper Viper 89, Adam and Bernie the Best Boy, Robert Runback Cashaback, Pete the Dreamweaver Collins, Matthew Malice Price, James Just Jamming Jones, Amin Almighty Perez, Paul Powerhouse Smith, Andrew the Galaxian Smith, Neon Knight, Cosmic Avenger, Matthew Shade Sadler, and BJ Kicks. Whew. Thank you all so much for being a part of this. We appreciate you.
Dude, those names are awesome. Now I gotta rethink this uncanny thing. That's kind of lame in comparison to some of those names.
So what we do is when people join us on Patreon, we give them a superhero or supervillain nickname and origin story. So we tell the story of their origin on the show and they join the Palsverse.
Oh, that's pretty cool. I like that. Yeah, makes Uncanny Omar seem kind of lame now. Like, there's some really cool names.
We all know.
Good on you for coming up with that. That's cool. I like that.
We all know Uncanny is the flagship, so I'd take it. Yeah.
It wasn't always. It wasn't always.
And thank you to Amin Perez for gifting those 5 memberships to Jack G, Bat Cato, Samuel Summers, Canadian Survivalist, and Pete Collins. That's awesome. Good for you guys. Let me see those pals heads in the chat, please. Drop those pals heads. So as you can see, Omar, we're busy around here too.
Good. Busy is good.
Absolutely. And you've been busy because you have a tremendous collection behind you of omnibuy and collected editions that really, what I love about your background is that it showcases what you love. Like, you're surrounded by your passion, you know, like if you had to look back there, I would imagine that 90, maybe 95% of those books are books that you love. So how did you get started in becoming passionate about collected editions? And why is it so important to you to make that what you hang your hat on as a comics collector?
Well, I had, like a lot of people probably my age, stopped reading comics in my teens. I was getting ready to go to college, so in 1996, there was a little storyline called Onslaught that came out, and that kind of broke me. And I was like, I think I'm done. I'm done. I'm gonna go to college. I don't need this. I got money for girls, go on dates. I had all these dreams in my head about what college was gonna be all about. It was not as cool as I thought it was gonna be. So
Just like Onslaught.
just like Onslaught. I mean, in hindsight, I think, you know, looking back, Onslaught was just, it's not as bad as I make it out to be. It's just that that's probably the way that I remember it. But I do remember the final issue that I got was I think it was 57, I think, of Adjectiveless X-Men. So I took a break. I took a break until 2001, 2002. I was in a horrible marriage and it was on its way out. And I needed something to kind of bring me back to who I used to be. So a friend of mine was like, dude, have you read Grant Morrison's new X-Men? It was coming out at that time. And I was like, yeah, Morrison's like a roller coaster. Like, I like JLA and I love Animal Man. JLA was like ups and downs. Yeah, well, Morrison's X-Men is very much like that too. So I read it and I dug it. I was like, this is cool. And then towards the end of that run, I started like really missing comics. So we're looking at 2002. So I was like, well, do I need to go? Because I still had my full run of X-Men but I was going through a divorce, so I had to sell a lot of my key issues, like my first appearances and stuff, which in hindsight is, believe me, I do miss my Hulk 181 and my X-Men 1 in giant size, but yeah, I'm glad I'm out of that and in a better place. So I would do it all over again, getting rid of those books if I had to. I noticed that Marvel in specific at that time were releasing series of trade paperbacks based on their Ultimate Universe immediately after like the 6th story was being done. They were collecting them. And I thought, man, that's really cool because I was going back into the comic book store and getting single issues, but I had missed so many years of it that I thought, oh, I guess I got to get back issues. And then I noticed that they started to collect like trade paperbacks of older things. This is before Epics. This is before Omnis. But it was still a better place as far as collected editions than when I left comics. There weren't a lot of graphic novels back then or collected editions. There was like Batman Year One, Year Two, uh, Watchmen, things like that. The things that Dark Phoenix Saga, things that have always been collected. But so there wasn't like a epic collections or like chronological order of collected editions. Not cheap. There were the Masterworks that started in 1987, but I was in 1987. I was a kid. I wasn't buying. What was the Masterworks
Right.
at that time? $40, I think. I wasn't buying high end books like
Wow.
that. And those are long out of print, and they had been out of print. So I noticed once they started doing that, by 2003, I thought, well, I mean, if they start collecting these things in chronological order, maybe I could go back and read my single issues and put the trade paperbacks in between that I don't have the single issues of and start collecting it that way. By the end of 2003, I had just dropped. I was back in comics because of Astonishing X-Men. I was like, oh, this is like coming back home. This felt like me coming back to comics. And I think I was like, I'm never leaving you again. I love you so much. Uh, and at that moment, I realized that they were cranking out more and more collected editions at Marvel. DC was still trying to catch up, but they started having things like Teen Titans and Outsiders and trade paperback immediately 6 issues. After your first 6 issues are done, they went to trade. And I thought, oh, I think I'm just going to start getting collected editions in 2003. And that started my journey in getting into collected editions. However, in 2003, because I've learned so much. The comic book market was afraid of having like volumes one, two, three, four, and five because after selling volume one, the sales of volume two would decrease. Three, by the time you get to four, it was like not even worth printing. And I learned this much later through talking to publishers about that. They had just like names like X-Men Extinction Agenda, X-Men Inferno, Fall of the Mutants, Mutant Massacre. So now X-Men, I know. I was like, oh, I know how this fits into chronological order. I got this. But like Superman, the years of Superman I miss, like City of Tomorrow, I'm like, where does this fit into like reading Superman? There wasn't a guide. It was right before Crushing, my buddy Peter M. Crushing Crisis started his website. Actually, I got to know Peter at the Marvel Masterworks forum, so I joined a forum. I started getting back into comics. Um, And I love the Masterworks forum. But the Masterworks forum was like, imagine your grandfather discovering the internet and joining that group. So they were the elite old guard that was anything new is trash, uh, which is funny because it's still like that for the next generation.
Right.
So I did learn a lot. I'm not hating on them. I learned a lot about collecting and a lot of things about collected editions from the Marvel Masterworks forum. But I was like, well, maybe I can put together like a spreadsheet. So I started creating my own spreadsheets, and then before I was like, I got it. I know how this fits into reading order. And that's how it kind of became my passion. Like I love, how people love collecting single issues and finding that issue to put like, oh man, I finally got issue 141 Days of Future Past Part 1.
Right.
Heck yeah, baby. I had 140 and 142. Ooh, what a good feeling that is to put that in there. That was the feelings I would like, those are the kind of feelings I would get when I would find like Superman, Our Worlds at War, volume 1. Like I was like, oh, that goes on the shelf perfectly. And I think because I was older, I was like, I think single issues, I'm just gonna keep pushing further back in my room. And I like the look of collected editions on a bookshelf. They make you look a little more well educated, if you will. People sometimes look at comics and they're like, you read comics, but they see this, dude. I love telling these stories. We had our movers that came over here and they moved us, right? Because oh my god, let me tell you, like these books weigh a ton.
Oh yeah.
And these dudes were so high. They came in here and they were like, "What is that?" And I'm like, "Oh, those are Omnis." And they're like, "What's in there?" And I'm like, "Because I see X-Men." And I was like, "Yeah, those are comic books," and they put them in a book. And they would not believe it. They're like, "What? Like a comic book is in there?" And I'm like, "Yeah, but like not the real comic book, like a reprint of it in a bigger format." Dude, I was blowing these dudes' minds. That
That's
was hilarious.
hilarious.
But they looked at the shelf and they saw books and they're like, "Those aren't books. There's something else." Because they knew they looked different, right? Obviously, they stand
Mm.
out and they see the names X-Men and Wolverine and things like that. And
I
that's
love it.
kind of how I got into collected editions heavily and became my passion.
That exact same thing happened to me with movers as well.
Oh, it's no joke,
I
man.
wound up giving them a couple of like trades because I was like, all right, well, you're gonna lighten my load and those are duplicates, so have fun.
Oh, that's what I did. Yeah,
Yeah,
a couple of them got some omnis. Yeah, these things are heavy.
The worst thing to move.
And they take up a lot of space. I mean, dude,
Mhm.
what you've got going on back there looks, it looks immaculate and it's well kept. The problem that I have as somebody who's been collecting single issues for 20 years is that I have maybe 25 long boxes of singles
Mhm.
and I don't know what to do with them. Like, do you live in a house?
I do. I live in Kentucky, so we have a basement. Thank God.
Yeah, I live in New
One
York.
of the few perks of living in Kentucky.
Like, I live in New
I
York.
am not coming to your show and bragging about the fact that I live in Kentucky. Let's just get that straight.
So space is limited is what I'm saying, right? And it's like you always have to figure out like, okay, well, how am I going to manage this? Right now I've got a lot of my stuff in storage.
Yeah, I was
And
there. I was there. I understand.
right, it's like you have to make a decision about these things. Are you a fan of digital comics?
Not really, because I like physical.
Yeah.
But dude, like I said, I'm 46. So I have to have a physical. My brothers bought me a PS5 for Christmas a couple of years ago. And they knew better to get me a PS5 without the disc reader. They were like, dude, we have to look for this disc reader because they know how I am. I have to have it physical. And I'm like, now all the 360 owners know exactly what I'm talking about because you can't download those 360 games anymore. They're gone. You still have
Exactly.
your digital disc, or if you still have your data disc or your video game physical, you can pop that in anytime. Yeah. So yeah, I'm yeah. I get it. I completely get it. I have family that has all their movies in Apple, and I'm kind of envious of that, especially when you move. Uh, I'm envious of that, or people that read books on Kindle, people that read comics on through well, not no longer Comixology. In a way, like I am jealous of that. There's just so much clutter sometimes. But I don't know. I never it never took off with me. Like I was like, oh, this is cool for now.
Yeah, I'm with you, bro. I can't do digital, and I respect it as a part of what is necessary for the future of comics, but I feel like a dinosaur in a lot of ways. I can't let physical go. I can't do it. I need to go to the shop every week.
Yeah.
Like I am a Wednesday warrior for whom the ritual is almost as important as the actual reading.
And then
I
like
think that is important. And I'm sure your local comic book store really appreciates that because a lot of people have turned to digital, but digital sales aren't helping your local comic book store.
Right.
They're not, and they're also I'm don't know if y'all know this or not, but like digital sales of a comic, the percentage that creators get that work for Marvel and DC is a lot less than they would selling a physical issue.
Hmm.
A lot
Come
less.
on.
Like it's insane because it's a digital comic, it's a digital copy, and yeah. So I'm all about physical. I think people ask me all the time, where do I see this in 10 years? I think comics are the last thing to go physical. I mean, besides toys, right? But
Sure.
video games, movies, like those. I mean, we got places like Walmart and Best Buy that have stopped selling physical media.
Yeah. Sony just announced
Yep.
they're going to stop physical DVDs and stuff.
It's just crazy that, to me, but I always think like there is an appreciation for physical media, and that's why we have record shops to this day. That's why my daughters, who are 15 and 12, their friends are into cassettes and CDs. And I'm like, cassettes and CDs? have you all heard of Spotify? Like, but it's really cool, man. These kids come in, like, they bring their CDs, and my daughters have CD players in their room because they're that age too. And I think that is so cool that that generation is getting into like physical media, because there is, to me, something special about collecting a limited edition Chrono Trigger soundtrack, which I still have to this day,
Ooh, that's cool.
that my daughter really wants from me. And I was like, not yet, maybe when you're a little older. My wife loves vinyl, and I actually, my dumb butt decided, I don't collect enough stuff. I think I'm gonna get into some vinyl too.
Oh no.
Yeah, like an idiot. Yeah. So, luckily, I kind of pumped the brakes on that, because I was like, well, we were in Japan this summer. I was like, they're having a sale. I gotta get stuff here because it's not available in America. It was that kind of way of thinking, which is so dumb, So I bought a bunch, and now, like, my wife was like, well, you put it in your basement. And I was like, oh, but I got so much down there already.
So I read like my weekly comics digitally, just
Mhm.
out of a sheer space issue,
Of course.
But like, I love an omnibus. Like, I still buy those if I'm going to my comic book shop. It's because I'm buying trades or I'm buying Omnibuy, because I just like the way it looks. There's a feel to it. Like, my favorite is I have those leather bound hardcovers of Sandman, and there's an addition to the experience opening up those that you can't get.
The leather bound, or the absolutes, or the hardcovers?
The hardcovers, not the absolutes.
Like the rainbow collection of Sandman?
No,
like the different colors?
No, they're like they're big ones. They're I think they're absolute size, but they're not absolutes that come in like a leather bound collection. I don't know.
Okay. I was trying to. Sorry,
I can pull it out. It's in the other room, but
because I know they've done. Well, that's the thing too, in the difference in like collected editions. Like I thought you were talking about the Rainbow collection. Yeah. So the Rainbow collection is like the last set of hardcovers of Sandman that come out before they recolored Sandman with digital colors. So it's the way that I like them. So it's kind of like the Laserdisc of Star Wars episodes 4, 5, and 6 coming out as the last version of Star Wars you're going to see before the special edition. And that is the only way. Of course, people have put that out there and made into Blu-rays and 4K and beautiful restoration, but not Lucas nor Disney has done that. So the only way you can watch Star Wars legally is, of course, getting the special edition versions in 4K. So yeah, Sandman's kind of like that for me. Like the way I remember Sandman, I have to keep, my wife keeps the what we call the Rainbow collection upstairs. So the different colors of hardcovers.
But like, there's just a different experience being able to open up a book like that.
I agree.
It's tactile. There's a smell involved too that adds to things. It's different than digital. If I didn't have to read digitally, I wouldn't. But yeah.
To that end, Omar, what obviously you collect omnis, and then you do it for work, but then you do it, in life as well. How much of a consideration is space for you?
A lot. I wish I could show you the amount of books I give away is insane. Like I'm not exact. I'm gonna try it, okay? But my camera might go like, you see that?
Yeah.
Like, over there?
Yeah.
That is completely like 2 rows of omnis and trades and manga, and there it goes. I knew that was gonna happen. Give me a second, but I'm still here, I promise. Can you still hear me?
Yeah.
You're good.
Okay. Sorry about that. I knew that was gonna happen. Shouldn't have done that. Dang it.
No worries. I think that was fascinating anyway.
Yeah.
So every milestone, and sometimes just because we do a giveaway. We do it for the 10K that we're having here. No, oh gosh, 100K. Woo! 100K, that's crazy to say still. Celebration that we're giving away a lot of books, international and stuff. And ever since day one, and as you all know, like when I started doing giveaways in 2015, we weren't making money. Dude, it took me 3 years to make money off this channel. Like, I saw there was a little bit of jealousy in the 2020 growth when people started their own channel. Yeah. They were being sponsored. They were getting YouTube money. And I'm like, man, it took me 3 years to get like my first sponsor. I was spending money giving things away. 2018 is when Marvel reached out to me. So I'm trying to think of how that went. Let me see if I can. There we go. There we go. Sorry about that.
No
So
worries.
that stack, like it's double layered too. That stack of books is things
Yeah.
I give away. So when you talk about space, when companies send me books to do overviews of, I sometimes that goes immediately in the giveaway pile because
Yeah.
I can't go down that rabbit hole of collecting these particular series, or it's gonna be bad because I have a real obviously addicted personality that it's not gonna be good. I'm gonna run out of space. And realistically, I have to run out of space. Like I will run out of space eventually. Even in this bigger house that we ended up getting 2 years ago. You run out of space, so you have to start picking and choosing. Um, but because I do this for a living, I have to keep like different editions of
Hmm.
books in case I'm doing reading orders or comparisons and things like that. Um, so so when like a company sends me like classic stories or like big books of like collections of like comic strips, and sometimes I end up giving those away because I'm like, well, I can't go down the rabbit hole of collecting all the comic strips and collected editions, even though these are beautiful and wonderful and put together really well. Uh, because obviously eventually you run out of space. Like I think I've given away a lot of the silver and golden age omnis that companies have sent me,
Wow.
which I'm very fortunate enough to get those, but it's just yeah, I just can't keep everything. And that's the thing. Like people sometimes see my tour and they're like, "Man, you got everything. I bet you don't read." No, I do. I do read a lot, but also it's impossible to keep up nowadays. When I was doing this for fun, when it was just me, I think I read 95% of my collection, maybe even 97. Now it's more like 68% maybe I've read. It's a lot. There's a lot to read.
Yeah.
Does having to do this for work and having to maintain relationships with publishers, which necessitates you reading and talking about books that maybe you wouldn't otherwise discuss or engage with, does that impact your enjoyment or passion for the medium at all? That now it's become jobified for you on some level?
Oh, absolutely. I think no matter what it is, right? No matter what it is, whether you enjoy playing video games, you start doing it for a living, you start reviewing video games, and you're like, man, I really don't feel like playing the next Madden or Assassin's Creed. Um, I think it will take the enjoyment out of it. So yeah, I am very blessed that I have different hobbies. I collect toys and I collect video games and movies, like physical. All everything's physical. So for me, it's like people have been wanting to see my toy collection on the channel, or people have been wanting to see like my anime collection on the channel. And I think for me, that's my sand garden. Like that's me.
Mm,
I share every bit of aspect of my life, then everything becomes work. So I have to separate that. I don't mind like giving like a quick like short or whatever it is, but like talking about anime and like talking about like toys, I can't do that. Otherwise, everything is work, and there is no separation between when does my life begin and when does work. Because it's already hard enough, as most of the people know that work from home. It's already hard enough to be like, oh, it's 6 o'clock in the morning, gotta get to work. Oh my gosh, it's 2 o'clock in the morning, and I'm still working, like
Yeah.
because you're home, and everything
right.
is constantly work, especially on a long day. So, uh, there are times that I'm like, "Oh, man, I gotta read this book," but I'm really enjoying reading this. So I do still read for enjoyment. Like, I still find time at least 3 times a week to read something because I wanna read it, because I've been dying to read it.
Mm,
Uh, because not every publisher sends me things, and there's things that I've been wanting to check out, things that are new, things that my friends are talking about, things that are my viewers are like, "Dude, Omar, have you read this? You need to read this." And eventually I get around to it. But if you're if you are taking the time to send me a book for me to do an overview of, then I have to prioritize. I have to like, well, yes, you're sending me something. The least I can do is read it and give it a spotlight. I'm not just going to put it in a stack and take a picture of it and share it on Instagram going, "Hey, thanks for hooking me up." Fill in the blank publisher.
right.
This is so cool, man. That's not the way I work. And I honestly don't know how anybody else does it. Uh, but I do still have to find time to read out of enjoyment, like, for me. It's not as much as it used to be, but and then there are times that, oh, man! I get to read. What was it? I was really looking forward to. Like, I haven't read Resurrection of Magneto yet.
Mm.
Spoilers with that title, but you know, and I was like, oh, cool, I get to read it. Or Fantastic Four by Ryan North was a book I wanted to check out, but because Marvel sent it to me way in advance, I was like, oh, cool, I get to read it. So there are times where work and enjoyment kind of like, oh yeah, I get to read it. Yeah, but then there are times that I'm like, oh man, I still gotta go through this omnibus.
I got to read the new reprint of Onslaught. Yeah.
Uh,
I would say for myself, one experience that I've had is, and I'm curious to see if you experience this as well, is my passion for the industry has actually grown over the last few years. And part of the name of this episode is the state of comics. And that's something we talk a lot about here on the channel is like, are comics as good as they used to be? Or, how are we experiencing the comics industry right now? Right. And
Mhm.
I find that through a combination of knowing the creators, because we get to speak to a lot of them, our audience caring about certain things and saying, hey, have you guys checked out this or that? And the fact that I have to read these things to be knowledgeable enough to come and speak about them, my passion has actually grown because the stuff that I'm reading is by and large so good. So, how do you feel about the current state of comics? And are you enthused about what comes out weekly, monthly? Do you have enthusiasm for the books that are coming out today?
I have grown up in the era of going to comic book stores when I was a kid. Ever since finding the local comic book store in my town. So I'm originally from Peru. We didn't have
Okay.
local comic book stores where I grew up in Lima, or maybe we did. I just didn't know about it. I was a kid. Um, but that's where my obsession with comics started. Even before I could read English, I had my first issue of X-Men is Uncanny X-Men 168. My uncle sent me, which I still have. That's my
Wow.
all-time favorite issue. Also, first appearance of Lockheed and Madeline Pryor. But as you probably know, and as probably anybody that went to comic book stores, you're always going to have people that are telling you, even when I was a kid in 1988 going to comic book stores, man, comics suck nowadays, kid. Like back in my day, it was Roy Thomas and Len Wein. And then there were older guys that were like, yeah, Stan Lee, the Silver Age, that stuff was what I read. I stopped reading comic. I remember I ended up working at the comic book store, my local comic book store, for about 3 years. One of the best jobs I've ever had. And I remember there was an older gentleman that was like, yeah, I stopped reading back in 1981. I was like, wow, 1981. Like you didn't even make it to like some of the best X-Men stories.
Right.
Like, but he was there to get like Golden Age issues. He was a Golden Age collector. So no matter what generation, there's always going to be people that are telling you comic books are dying. Because I've been told that ever since walking into a comic book store in 1988. The comic books are dying. They're not as good as they used to be. Things were a lot better when I was young. They used to do things different. And it's crazy how that's still a thing. That there are people that always remind you that comic books are not what they don't sell it. Okay. There is a little bit of truth that they don't sell as good as they used to. But I mean, let's not go crazy. It's not like the late 90s were the best for comics either.
Right.
Right. I mean, there's a whole history of the bankruptcy, but I mean, it wasn't a true bankruptcy of Marvel Comics, but they weren't doing great. And I find that really interesting that people are like, oh, this is the worst. They're selling it horrible. I can't believe they're printing this garbage. I can't believe they're, and people just bring in their personal thoughts sometimes when it comes to these books. And I do respect people's opinion though. Like I get it. I get it. I know, hell, manga isn't what it used to be either. It's not. It's
Yeah,
like
sure.
the titles are insane nowadays compared to when I grew up with manga. Um, but I think there is definitely a lot of that going on these days, and it's so much wider spread because of social media, right?
Mm.
People love sharing their thoughts, whether it's negative or positive on things, and I think it's interesting to see that mentality of like comic books were not as good as when I was a kid is still there. Right, yeah. My favorite era of comics is the 1980s, of course. I mean, but oh my gosh, every week I was reading House and Powers of X and the Krakoa era. I was so happy reading X-Men again. I was so happy. Like, I don't care if I started with 168 and, people were so mad at the retcons. I was like, dude, this is good. To me, that retcon of, I don't want to spoil what happens, is as good as the Parallax retcon. That is how you do a proper retcon to me. Like, I don't understand the hate, but, everybody's entitled to their opinion. So I still get excited for comics. Dude, X-Men has been the worst relationship I've ever been in. And I love telling people this too. Like they're they go on. I know you probably hear it. Like people complain about Zeb Wells run on Spider-Man. I'm sure you guys have heard that, right? Like, oh, this is the worst. Like, dude, we survived Sins Past in one more day. We're gonna be okay. We're gonna be okay. Yeah. Or X-Men, right? Dude, I survived Chuck Austin and Peter Milligan's run on X-Men. Don't even get me started on the Trial Gambit, which I know people love. But things like that, like I've gone through the worst. I'm here for the long. This is a relationship. X-Men don't always treat me good. It's abusive sometimes. But I'm still here because I love the X-Men. I love the characters. So every freaking time there's a new era of X-Men, I get excited. I don't care if it looks ridiculous. I still get excited. Like with this new era with Gail Simone and Jen McKay taking over X-Men. I'm like, yes. I know people are sad to see the Krakoa era go, but
sure.
I think it's what keeps comics moving and what keeps comics interesting. You can't keep... Okay, to get old readers engaged, yes. You got to keep the same formula going and going. But to get that new blood, to check out books and check out things, you have to create new things. And if you don't take chances, then you're just going to go back to the same formula. And that, as a business, you can't think about the old guard, right? Like the people that are reading comics now, the people that have been reading for 20 years. You need to think about the people that haven't read a comic book yet and how to get those people hooked and how to get them to reading comics, no matter what you try.
To kind of speak on like taking chances and new things, and I'm curious what your thoughts are. Do you have any thoughts on a DC Compact?
I'm 46 years old, and I don't need DC to remind me how old my eyes are. So if I have to put my glasses on to read a book, no, thank you. I think it's wonderful that it's $9.99. So if you got young eyes, good on you. I think it's really interesting that they don't put a plastic cover or a warning on it when some of the stuff is mature content. And the last thing you need, DC or any other publisher, is some mother to get a hold of this to start some kind of movement about the state of comics and how easily accessible it is to some of these kids that are reaching for this little compact book that looks like a manga. So that's the only negative thing. I think it's wonderful. I think, dude, $10 for Watchmen? Are you kidding me? Yes. Or All-Star Superman, like some of the greatest stories collected in a small. Yes, if I had young eyes, of course, I would be all over that. I think it's great.
That's hilarious.
I'm just reminded of the fact that the Wonder Woman book they chose for that is Earth 1, which is the Morrison one.
Right.
Which is very much talking about...
no warning, no parental warning or no shrink wrap. And I'm like, man, that's what I don't want happening, right? That's the kind of notice comic books don't need. Don't need a senator holding up a copy of Watchmen compact size going, I can't believe they let this out there to kids at a Walmart.
That sounds like something Alan Moore would probably want, actually.
I don't think Alan Moore. You talk about heartache. Alan Moore got his heart broken by comic books for so long. I don't think he cares.
I have a question for you that's been rattling around my brain, and I really want the chat to answer this too. So pay close attention to this question, chat. Omar, do you think that you have already read your favorite comics? In the sense that obviously comics will continue to release as long as you're alive, certainly. Do you think that you have already read the comics that you will love the most in your life?
I'm going to cheat a little bit and answer that like my favorite comic book writer of all time, Chris Claremont. So Chris Claremont told me when I asked him, what's your favorite story you've ever written? He said, the one I haven't written yet. And I was like, man, I like that. So I'm going to go with, no, I don't think I have. I think there's still stories out there to be told. And I haven't read them yet because every year I find something new or something is suggested to me that I'm like, man, this is good. And I've done a list of my dude, I do videos every day. I can't remember. I think I've done no, I have, right? Like my favorite 10 omnis, my favorite 10 absolutes.
Sure.
Have I done a list of my favorite stories? And I now that those videos are like 5, 6 years old, I'm like, well, maybe now it's time to redo my favorite image
Yeah.
titles. I still feel the same about that because I was 5, 6 years younger, and I've read so much more since then. I don't go back and watch my old videos, so I don't know if I've done that list or not. Maybe I have. I know I've done my favorite X-Men stories, I think.
Well-
So no, I don't think I have. And I think there's definitely more stories to be told. There's new blood to be found. Like every year there's a new writer or writers or artists that I'm like, oh, I've never heard of this person. Who is this? And then I see their backlog of like all these independent stuff that they've worked on and stuff. And I think, oh man, that's really cool. For every creator that you follow, there's other creators that are, inspired by different things that
Yeah.
you'll find later on. And I think that's the beauty of comics, that I think there's more stories to be told and more stories for me to enjoy. So no, I don't think I have. But I've read some dang good ones though. It's hard to
Yeah.
top. It's hard to top the good ones though.
Well, the one that always like jumps out to me recently is like, if you'd have told me 2 years ago, I'd be like Transformers would be one of my favorite comics going on, I would have called you crazy. But like that is just the evolution of the medium. Is that things like that can pull in new readers. It can surprise me. Sure, it helps that it's Daniel Warren Johnson that's working on it, but the fact that like that is a comic book that I'm reading and loving every week is bonkers to me. So I'm constantly surprised, almost weekly at this point.
Yeah, my wife my wife could not get into the IDW era of Transformers, and that's like mine and my daughter's favorite era of Transformers. But she is huge into the David uh, Daniel Warren Johnson's Transformers, the Energon universe. Like she's huge into it. She loves it. And yeah, my daughter and I, when we're reading it, we're like, yeah, it's okay. It's not bad. It's fun. Because we're both so snooty about our Transformer comics. Because we like relationships and character development. None of this like wrestling Transformers. And I did enjoy it though. I really liked it. I do like Daniel Warren Johnson's Transformers. And I really like Jorge's art now.
Yeah.
I think he is
Killing
the
it.
perfect artist to take over after Daniel Warren Johnson.
Yeah, he's absolutely been killing it. I love the answers, chat, that you guys are giving. Pretty much everyone's saying that they don't feel like they've read their favorite run yet, their favorite runs, their best comics. If you are listening to this conversation and you're digging it and you're feeling the vibes, please do click the subscribe button. We go live every Saturday at 10:15 a.m. Eastern. So when you guys are done with Omar's channel and his live stream, you can come check out what we're getting into. But yeah, everybody that does that, we appreciate it very, very much. Omar,
Yes, sir.
you're a big X guy, big X-Men fan.
A little bit.
So am I. I
Okay.
started reading X comics 20 years ago, but my relationship with them goes back as far as when I was born, because one of the first things I remember seeing was the X-Men animated series.
Are
the
you telling me you were born in 1992?
I was born in 1990. So I'm 34.
Okay.
But my first X-Men comic, for example, was I came in during like the Messiah Complex era, right?
Oh, I love that area.
So yeah, so that was super fun. And I've gone a little bit backwards and then I've carried on all the way through. So what are your thoughts on the last, we'll say 20 years worth of X-Men comics? I know that's a big question.
So we're looking back at 2004, and I think that's when X-Men got connected again. Because there was a time when X-Men were like, okay, Soldier X is going to do his thing, Agent X is going to do his thing, Ecstatics is a mutant book, sure. X-Men, yeah, all right. They're wearing leather. Chuck Austin isn't talking to Grant Morrison about what's going on in either book. They were trying out new things again, because you have to keep trying new things to get books to sell and to get a new audience. But I do like the X titles being interconnected, and during that actually the Messiah complex is what brought them together again. I had interviewed Joe Quesada right before Messiah complex and right before One More Day, and I was, one of my questions was like, when are the X-Men going to start talking to each other again? I miss that era of like
Sure.
the events era of Mutant Massacre, Fall of the Mutants, Inferno, and like, I love when there was a crossover, and he's like, yeah, we're thinking about doing something like that, and it was Messiah Complex. So I think Messiah Complex was the era that spun out of not having the X-Men and the X teams connected, and they're like, okay, let's bring them back together. And on top of that, then we got X-Force, with Colin Yost, which is amazing. I love that. I know people love Uncanny X-Force. I love it too. But to me, I love X-Force by Colin Yost. Those guys could write books. They could tell a heck of a story. And I'm not going to say every era was great. No. Again, they were trying different things. I'm not the biggest fan of the manga era. And I'm not talking about manga art. I'm talking about Jean Grey, Iceman. What was the Generation? Is it Gen M? I think is what it was called. Generation? No, Generation Hope. Nope. No. It was a Generation X title. But what they were doing is they were telling stories like a slice of life manga, and they were taking chances. And I know, like my friend Maddie loves Jean Grey. She was like, that was my favorite series. It was a young Jean Grey. It was during the color era. It was like X-Men Blue, X-Men Gold. There was Iceman. There was Jean Grey. There was I cannot remember Generation Hope. Whatever it was. I wasn't the biggest fan of that era because it's like they were trying things and it didn't feel like X-Men. Matthew Rosenberg's era, that was
Yep. It was a time.
It was interesting. Sure. Yeah. But absolutely it's just like every other era, I think, ups and downs. Even the 80s had ups and downs. Like I love the Outback years, but that's not everybody's favorite. The Outback years to me are my best era of X-Men. But I understand why people did not like it. So ups and downs. Yeah. Some great. I mean, and we got Krakoa out of that, which is probably top 5 best eras of X-Men. It's great.
I think my saddest time as a comics reader was, and I hate to say this because I genuinely love this human being so much, but it was during Bendis's era of X-Men.
Well, you see how I didn't say his name, right?
Yeah. I know. It's not even because of him, it's because of Marvel, really. Because we know about the fact that they kind of didn't want to, they didn't want to do too much with the mutants because of the Fox situation and them having the rights on film. And so the mutants were kind of in a holding pattern. And it felt like that because I always thought, man, Bendis can do no wrong. Bendis is the guy to progress things. And I could feel like he was shackled because we saw what he did with Avengers and he wasn't able to apply that same revolution to the X-Men, and it feels by design because not what 6 years later, they let Hickman come in and revolutionize the whole thing. Hickman did a revolution akin to what Morrison did, but it felt like Bendis had the shackles on him.
So not a fan of it. I actually loathe that era of X-Men.
Yeah.
But I'm also not a fan of Bendis's writing. Like
Oh.
Bendis, yeah, I've never been a fan. I like his powers and I like most of Miles Morales. But he came from the style of writing that I wasn't a fan of, which is like padding storylines for 6-issue arcs to make it into a trade paperback.
Sure.
So that comes from editorial, and I get it. And it wasn't like, oh, I'm going to read X-Men and completely hate it because Brian Michael Bendis is changing everything up. I just, I wasn't a fan of his New Avengers, Ultimate Spider-Man. I get it. My viewers love it, but I was like, I've been there, done that. I don't, whatever. Cool. X-Men was different because I think, okay, despite of how I felt though, he was the guy that put Avengers on the map. Again, Avengers became the flagship title, outselling X-Men during that era. So much so that there were 3 Avengers titles.
Yeah.
Instead of just 1 every month. Huge events were selling. When he came to X-Men, I will say this. He took the character of Magic and made her into like an A-list character. I love Magic. I love Ileana, but she was almost a forgotten character until they brought her back in New X-Men. Colin Yost again. but it was just like, oh, I like Magic. She's a complicated character. I like Dark Child. That's a cool character. But not everybody was like, oh man, she should join. But he put her on the X-Men, and with that Chris Bachalo redesign of the costume, made her into a popular character, which is now like, I think she's been a part of the X-Men since then.
Yeah. Made you, so you got Magic being, you know, a real prominent character again, and then you get Genocidal Beast. So, you know, you give and you get.
There were choices made that,
And
again,
as an
it's
as an Inhumans fan, I loved that era. That was great.
all right.
I got to actually have Inhumans books. So
Okay. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I know, but the thing is, like, I know a lot of my viewers that really enjoyed the Bendis era, All New and Uncanny. I think he got some characters right, though. I really like the way he wrote some characters, and others I'm like, that sounds nothing like this character, but whatever. But that era did sell. I remember it did sell well. Mainly, you know, could be because it was probably new reader friendly, bringing in the old X-Men, part of the team, like overstaying their welcome, sure. And then we're like, we need to get rid of these people. What do we do? Oh, we'll have a miniseries. Let's get rid of all of them at that time. So yeah, but X-Men has always been ups and downs with me.
I also feel like X-Men fans are very hopeful. Like, we really every time there's a new status quo coming around, we're all like, okay, guys, this could be the one. And, you know, maybe we're disappointed, maybe we're happy. I find that throughout my 20-year experience, there's been more good than bad. That's what I would say.
Oh,
But
yeah, I agree with that. Yeah. I agree with that 100%. I think, you know, for as good as the 90s were to me, there was a lot of low points in the 90s, especially for X-Men. I think the aughts were better. And in the last 20 years, I think they had, you know, more ups and downs. I don't know how that translates to sales. Because again, it's not about people my age. It's about people that don't read comics, about the younger generation that needs to go in there and read comics and get hooked.
that's the interesting thing, though, is that I think Krakoa actually did that. I think
Oh,
that
yeah.
I think a lot of people found the X-Men through the Krakoan age, and that is why there is so much like anger about it ending, because a lot of people's first experience with the X-Men was that. So they're like, well, why would I want to go backwards? I want to go forward, like more of this. And they didn't realize that comics are not about forward momentum. Comics are about how far can we stretch this before we take it back?
Yeah. What Tyler said earlier kind of reminds me of that. So my daughter and I love Transformers, the IDW era, because they were trying new things. And we go to Transformers convention. That's our thing.
Oh, wow.
I'm very blessed to have a 15-year-old daughter that loves Transformers as much as I do. We went to Toronto this year to go to TFCon. And what's really interesting is that, so I've grown up with Transformers, and you didn't see a lot of girls, a lot of women into Transformers. It wasn't until the IDW era. And in the IDW era, they introduced a lot of new concepts that I thought were really interesting that I never thought about when it came to Transformers. And there is a huge fan following, cosplayers and just ladies that are into Transformers because of that era. So much like Krakoa, those same people are like, I'm not reading this Daniel Warren Johnson hyper masculinity book about Transformers. I want to go back to the IDW era. And so it kind of reminds me of that. But you're right, because people don't realize comics aren't forever. They have to change. We used to call it the 7-year rule. I remember people complaining about damn, what was it? It just happened recently. Oh, it was like Heroes Reborn when Marvel did the Heroes Reborn storyline and or Avengers Forever. People were like, didn't they do this already with the same title? I'm like, oh yeah, it's a 7-year rule. We've had a Civil War many times. It's called Secret Wars when I was a kid. And then it was the Mutant Registration Act. It's just the same story that they're recycling over and over, but they're selling it to a new audience in the hopes that the new audience doesn't know about this. And it's the first time, like, it's their event. It's, oh my gosh, it's Civil War. Dude, Iron Man and Captain America are fighting. And, like, you know, you got people my age. what are you talking about, man? They fought so many times in the past. Like, it's that whole, yeah, we used to call it like every 7 years they have to recycle the same story. Or they don't have to, but it seems like that's what companies were doing, both at Marvel and DC. And now it's kind of become a bigger joke with DC with the Crisis stuff. Oh, we got to reboot the universe. So much so that everybody knows it. It's so weird to hear people talking about like joking manner, like, oh, they're gonna reboot the universe. Like when I was a kid, we hardly talked about that because they only did it one time and it was a huge deal. And now it's like, oh, has it been 5 years? Isn't it time for DC to reboot the universe again because things are not selling?
We joke about that around here every year. We do a guess like, is DC going to reboot the universe this year? Is this the year? It's just so common with them. But the audience has been shooting us questions, and we had some questions that came in, throughout the week for people who were just so excited for you to join us. So I would love to turn things over and get some of the audience questions in the mix if we can do that.
Yeah.
Cale, do you want to grab one?
Yeah,
you got
sure.
any? Yeah.
Yeah. So I've got the first one here from Atomic Hound, longtime pal, Atomic Hound.
Big fan of yours as well, Omar.
I like that guy. I recognize that name.
The only person that hangs out with us and talks about you as much as he talks about us.
Oh,
Hound.
that's awesome. Oh, what a guy. Yeah.
Hound says DC has been through a lot of changes in their collected editions. Do you think they will set some plans like compact editions and DC Finest and actually stick with them?
Well, the way that the catalog has been looking, it looks like they're going complete guns a-blazing with this DC's Finest. Because when the Epic collections came out for Marvel, it was unprecedented that they were like, we are starting this with not volume 1. I thought the most brilliant thing out of that was putting the volume number in the back. Because remember what I said earlier about bookstores hate this. They're like, oh, by the time we get to volume 4, completely unsellable. We don't want it. Now things have changed. I love that things have changed. But DC's doing the same thing. But Marvel only announced 4, and then they said, here's 6 more, and that's it. DC is like, here's 4 this month, and here's 8 the next month. Oh, and on top of that, the catalog is completely filled with DC's Finest. So they are like, I was like, Peacemaker gets a DC's Finest. What? Okay. It's so different than the show, but whatever. I think it's wonderful. I love it. And I have hopes that it does. I hope, I've never been one of these guys that go, oh man, DC's closing its doors. This is it. This is the last year for DC. I'm always hoping that they can bounce back and do right by what, and it's hard to get that. It's hard to get that trust back once you've been burned so many times with cancellations, things solicited, canceled, removed. And I get it. Like a lot of my longtime viewers that have been collecting DC have been burned a lot. But it seems like they, at least to me, that they got their act together and they are going to pump these out and really commit to these new lines, compendiums, the DC Compact and the DC's Finest.
The compendiums they're doing right now are fantastic. I'm really liking those. It's like a quick way of.
I think they're a lot better built than they used to be. That's for sure.
Yep, for sure.
But yeah, they've been holding up, and I've read a lot of those cover to cover. I mean, my gosh, we need one more milestone, and that's it. Like after the newly catalog one, volume 4, we need volume 5, and that is the entire Milestone universe, which they've never done ever. The closest we got was like a couple of trade paperbacks. But we're about to finish out in I say by 2026, we'll finish out the Milestone universe in a collected edition complete. That's insane.
That's incredible.
Absolutely. I love that. I know it's not an omnibus, but I mean, in my preferred format, of course, is omnibus, but I don't have to have it in that format in order to have it on my shelf.
Now, that brings up a good point because I have quite a few omnibuy myself, not nearly as many as you do, but
I think you have more comics than I do though now. With your
singles,
20 plus.
I find that I don't necessarily know how to read an omnibus correctly in the sense that, I open it up, I read it cover to cover, whatever, but the spine, there can be issues with that. Do you have any recommendations for the proper way to read and store an omnibus?
No.
No?
Okay, great.
Next question. I'm just kidding. I've done videos on how to properly stretch the spine on an omnibus for people that want these products to last. But I mean, I have mine. My Uncanny One is my oldest Omni, and it's still holding strong. Um, I can't let go. I can't let go of that one. It's signed by so many creators that are no longer with us. But here's the thing. Okay, you can stretch the spine, you can make it last as long as possible, because these books are $100+, right? But at the end of the day, books are meant to be read. Like, to me, like, I crack open, like, people see me crack open my limited edition Stan Sakai's Usagi Yojimbo. They're like, dude, do you know how much that book is worth? And I'm like, yeah, do you know how many times I've freaking read it? I don't care how much it's worth. Like, that's the thing. I'm not here to flip books. I'm not here to tell you to go out and buy this because this is worth a ton of money. Keep it sealed. I'm here to tell you about the stories that I enjoy. And if this is the format that I have it in, then this is how I'm going to read it. I do the same thing with absolute editions. I think, to me, books are meant to be read. Sure, you can prolong their life. I've seen people buy blocks, like little blocks to keep the pages from sagging. I don't know. I never bothered with that. First of all, that would cost me an arm and a leg to put every one of these books on a block. There are tips. Stretching the spine is the one thing I've always done. I think that just comes from being a creature of habit and having done it for 20+ years, because I learned through the Marvel Masterworks about stretching the spine from an actual book collector. But then I hear that you don't have to do that anymore because the glue is so different. And I'm like, okay, cool. But I'm also a creature of habit, so I'm going to keep doing it. You don't have to do it. That's cool. But I'm going to keep doing it. I don't know if it really does help nowadays or not, though. So yeah, the tips that I have is go open that book up from the plastic and go and read it. That's my tip.
I love that. I definitely love that. Tyler, you want to tackle another listener question?
Yeah, well, Spiral Storm had more of a comment rather than a question. He said, Omar, I love what you and Curtis do for the Epic Collection community. He just wanted to tell you that.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, Curtis is, man, I haven't met Curtis, like physically met him yet. Curtis and I have been internet friends for, I don't know, 6-7 years. And I love Curtis. I also met him at the Marvel Masterworks board. And I feel like I could do announcements by myself about Epics, but I don't want to, because I like sharing the joy with him of like getting to announce these books and talking about these Epic collections. And he's such, like, probably the nicest guy out there on the internet. I love that guy. So thank you.
And then Cosmo had a question. I would love to hear Omar's thoughts or advice on how to choose a first omnibus. Been looking for a while, but I can't seem to pull the trigger on anything in fear that I won't actually like the story or that I'll get sick of it. Thanks.
And if you wanted, Omar, they also have a question that they put in the chat earlier. If you wanted to tie that into an X-Men Omni, that would be great.
That's, yeah, so it depends on what you like, right? I can't suggest you an X-Men Omni if you're a Batman guy. So if you like X-Men, okay. Don't do it. Don't.
Great.
Don't stick to your single issues. My gosh, because once you get the bug, so for me, I'm a weird dude that has to start. If I find something, people talking about it, and I'm like, no matter if it's like a TV show or anime series or comics, I have to start from the beginning.
No.
That's me, right? But if I tell you to go start X-Men at the X-Men Volume 1, maybe, I'm just saying maybe, you'll drop it and be like, this is so boring. Because that's not, like, when I say X-Men, when people say X-Men, they don't think of the X-Men by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby and later on Roy Thomas and Neil Adams. Like, that's not the era. So to play it safer, I always go with Uncanny One. My absolute favorite stories, including my first issue, is Uncanny Volume 3, which has God Loves, Man Kills, the epitome of an X-Men story to me. That is my all-time favorite comic. And it's got From the Ashes. It's got the Wolverine miniseries. So that might be the right answer. If you like more modern stuff, then you can't go wrong with either Grant Morrison's New X-Men or Astonishing X-Men. But Astonishing right now is out of print. Hopefully it'll come back to print. So I think something like that, I think those are the kind of suggestions I would have.
Where do you stand on recommending House and Powers to a new reader?
Oh, that one's tough because I think it is new reader friendly. But also you get so much more out of it if you've read 60 years of X-Men. You're like, oh, that actually makes sense because of issue 255 of Uncanny X-Men. She was alone with Destiny. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you don't get that out of like, who's this girl? Like, what's going?
Right.
Like, you know the movies. Like, yeah, you get more. Yeah, I think that's a good recommendation. I think I would definitely put that in my where to start reading X-Men video.
Okay, fair enough. Comics Joe said today's comic runs barely last 15 issues anymore. Because of that, is the market for Omnibus drying up?
18 issues or more. Is the market for Omnibus drying up?
Says as he looks around
No.
his bookshelves and
It's insane. I had a collaborator a few years ago that I would do videos with, and we don't do videos together. You know, he decided to go his way, and that's completely cool. But he used to dub it the before Omar era and the after Omar era, and I never thought about it until he showed me the charts about what it was like. And for anybody that has been collecting Omnis, you may not call it that, and please don't call it that. There was a time when we would get one, maybe two Omnis a month, if we're lucky to. And we would get one or two reprints a year. And since 2019, it's a lot more. We get about 4 to 8 Omnis just from Marvel alone a month, and we get two, maybe one or two Omni reprints a month. We do our top 20 most wanted Marvel Omnibus reprint polls every year, and every year they do about 18 or 19 of them. They reprint them.
Of the ones on your list?
Mhm.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I'm serious. I mean, if you think about it, though, that is a smart move from a company to get free market research.
Yeah.
I was gonna ask
I mean,
that very question.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, like, let's think about it.
Yeah.
I mean, like David and I are good friends now, and that's David Gabriel. Like, we text each other all the time. He was telling me about the D23 stuff and like some complete collections that are coming out because of what was announced. And he was like, "Where do you find that issue of this character?"
Stop it.
And I was like, "Oh, you're looking for this trade paperback?" But we have that kind of connection. Like, but also it's free market research. It's like the viewers get to vote for what they want, and as long as they're buying, they keep printing them. Like, and I think that's first of all, that's insane. Like, I've never like I said, I'm a toy collector. I collect video games, and I collect a little bit of vinyl. Don't tell my wife, and I collect anime. And for the love of God, I wish there was a channel out there like mine that was into any of that, that had a connection with a company where I could be like, can you please get them to reprint the Chrono Trigger vinyl? Because that thing is insane. I can't think of another hobby where maybe, I don't know, I don't collect sneakers and I don't collect cars. I can't think of another hobby like this where a publisher has a connection with somebody. And I swear I'm not tooting my own horn. I'm just saying it. I like it because it works, like, and it's worked over the years.
Your niche market is
Just niche of a niche, right?
Your niche of a niche has so many followers and so many, people, so many eyes on it that, when you talk about something, they can probably see the numbers go up.
Yeah, it's insane, like how that's where, and I've had because that relationship with Marvel, I've had other publishers that have reached out to me to ask it's really crazy where my life has taken me. So again, I'm 46 years old. This was not what I was supposed to be doing at my age. Like I'm not the guy that was like, man, I need to be doing YouTube for a living. I'm smarter than all these people or whatever, right? That wasn't me. I was the guy that lost my job in 2020. And when I couldn't find anything else, like my wife was like, well, maybe you could do this full time. Like, and then Marvel started sponsoring 4 videos a month. Um, my views went up. We built a Patreon, and this is kind of what I've done since 2021 full time. No, this is what I do full time. I don't do anything else. And let me tell you something. I ain't making the money I used to being a project manager in IT, but I am living so much better. Like it's insane. Like
Yeah.
getting to do the like telling like it's awesome because you guys will appreciate this. So you have normal friends, right? They're not in the comics and stuff, and they're like, well, you go online and you talk about comic books. Get out of here. Like I have friends that are engineers, that are lawyers, that don't get it. They're like, man, hey, dude, I'm having a cookout this Saturday. Yeah, man, I can't come. I'm doing a show. And they're like, all right, do it on Sunday then. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. I'm doing a show. This is how I'm making a living. Because I have friends like that don't get it. They're like, yeah, but you own your own business. Can't you just push that until Sunday? Just tell your people. Like that's the mentality. It's like, just tell your people. They'll come. And I'm like, no. Let me tell you something, guys, right now. 3 of you and people watching. I could have canceled my live stream this morning to go and meet Jim Lee, who was only 20 minutes from me, who never comes to Kentucky. I've been collecting comics since 1987. And I've lived in Kentucky since 1987. Oh, no, I've been collecting comics a lot longer than that. I was in Peru. But anyway, truly collecting comics since 1987. He's never come to Kentucky. He was 20 minutes from me. At the last minute, like his daughter's into horses, and apparently they're doing something here. And he called a random comic book store, and he's like, hey, it's Jim Lee. They didn't believe him. And he was like, look, man, I'm going to be in Lexington. I don't want to do this thing all day. I'm going to come to your store, do a couple hours of signing. Is that cool? The guy was like, I don't even have a space for Jim Lee. He's freaking out. And he was like, okay, sure. I could have canceled my show and then had to turn you guys down. And I'm sure the 3 of you would have understood. But I think to me, it's like, what does that say about me? Right? Like, I'm canceling my show to go see Jim Lee. My viewers are like, dude, you should have done it. Could have done a live stream. And I'm like, yeah, but that would have been weird. Like me standing in line, like, what's up, everybody? I'm here in line waiting on Jim Lee with a bunch of strangers that probably don't want to be on camera. So because I am very blessed to be doing this for a living, like when people ask me, why do I do videos every day? Why do I read? Why do I edit? Why do I spend so much time doing this? Because I think, and this is something that I've told my wife, and now she knows. Now she knows she doesn't ask me anymore. But when she was asking me things like, why do you do this? Like, maybe you could do it different. Maybe you can change things up. And I told her, and I mean this with like all my heart, that you know how many people would kill or give everything they have to do what I do for a living? So if I don't give it everything I have, man, it's a slap to the face to all those people.
I could not agree with those words anymore. And like we've been doing this for 7 years. We've really only started to make any kind of money over the last couple, and that is just from our listeners and YouTube AdSense. We don't have sponsors. We've never been sponsored, nothing. And yet I have people in my life who will say, whoa, it's so cool that you do that. It's so cool that you get to go live and people show up and listen to you talk. And this is what I was doing before we made a single cent off of it. You know, the money is not the point. Obviously, you feed your family off of your channel. So that's a different level of, you're in a different weight class than me. But just even getting any amount of money is like a token of appreciation for a passion and hard work that I would be doing anyway, because I need to do this for whatever reason. And it sounds like you do too.
And like I said, I don't know how anybody else does this. Like when people ask me my advice, they're starting channels, and I'm sure you guys get that too. Like, hey, I'm starting my own channel. My advice is always like technical. Get a mic, because if people can't hear you, they're not going to watch, right? and have an authenticity, like have an authentic voice. Like basic things like that. It's never about like, oh, you want to invest in this, you want to do this, you want to make sure you're doing this before you go. Like, I don't know how anybody else does this. I have no idea how channels run. I have no idea how anybody else does it. I know how I do it. And the goals that I set are for me alone. Like that's the way I do it. And I may burn out. I don't know, but I've been doing it full time for so, yeah, about 4+ years, and it's been okay. Like last year was the I will say last year was the first time I ever took a day off, and that was to take 2 weeks off to go to Japan. And then we did it again this year. Because I don't. There is no days off. There's no Christmas. Like, and I don't mean like, oh, look at me, I'm working on, I'm editing, right? Like, or when we go on trips, I think ahead of time, like, oh, I gotta make sure I gotta get that
Right.
video up and stuff like that. But it is, there is a lot of that. Like, my wife has learned, like, oh, we can't go out to dinner just yet because he's got to make sure that video's uploaded and things like that. And again, I don't want anybody feeling sorry for me because I get to read comics for a living, and that is, if you were to tell if you were to tell like 10-year-old Omar that, he'd be like, "What? Shut up!" Like,
Exactly.
like he wouldn't believe it. He'd be like, "Well, first of all, I'd have to explain what the internet is to him," and like, like it would be just insane if I could go back in time and tell my young self, like, "Dude, you need to read more comics. Don't take off from comics. Just keep reading comics." Like, yeah, it's insane. It's insane.
Thank you for sharing that. That is an incredible testimony, and I think, I take it as inspiration that, passion is, it's not enough. Hard work is required, but you can build a life around the things that you love. 100%. It is possible.
I I had I think it was in 2018, 2019. I interviewed Jimmy Palmiotti, and he said something that stuck with me. He was like, it was he said that if you love what you do and you put everything into it, the money will eventually come. And that stayed with me. Like if you put everything, because I could, because I'll be honest, I like I'm sure people cut corners when doing things like this. Like, but I don't know what corner I could cut. Like to me, if I don't read The Resurrection of Magneto, then like I guess I could watch, or I could Wikipedia of what this is about. But to me, I have to read it because I'm just doing a disservice to myself if I don't. So I guess I could cut corners like that to save time, but I don't know. I never think about that. Um, Especially when people send me books, right?
I find it to be impressive that, you know, from what I can see, your channel is really, you and your wife and a couple other people that you do videos with. But like by and large, the bulk of the effort is being done by you. There are other channels, great channels. We just unfortunately lost Benny,
Yeah.
one of the biggest shining stars of this industry, and he had a team. It was a team that was putting those videos together. It took a team to make that machine what it was, and you managed to do it more or less by yourself. And, I'm not comparing anybody's work ethic. I'm just saying that it's impressive that you managed to do all of this relatively solo.
Yeah, that's why people sometimes find editing mistakes because I'm up until because I'm dude, just this week. And I told my wife if I could limit it to what look, I put out a video every day, sometimes 2, sometimes 3. I'm crazy. But if I can limit a mistake to once a month, I'm okay. Yeah, and it happened this week with Brand New Day. I think I left that part out where I was like, I'm gonna correct. I think it was like something about like I didn't like the way I said I'm gonna crack this book open or something like that, or I slipped up. I'm just glad I didn't leave any f bombs in there because I am known for my potty mouth behind the scenes. But because I have kids that watch my channel, I leave that out. But yeah, some of my viewers notice. I'm like, as we're driving, I tell my wife, I let out the big f bomb. I'm like, dang it! I thought I fixed it. So like YouTube, you can clip things. I'm like, oh, but it's gonna take a while. Oh
Oh
man,
my
people are gonna be
God.
commenting, and they did. They did comment, and they were all getting funny and stuff. So yeah, if I can limit myself to one mistake a month, like in an edit, I'm doing okay. Because I do it all myself. I do. I edit
That
it
and
myself.
those are the moments that keep you up at night too, right? Like when you know you made a mistake or you said some dumb shit or someone pointed
Yeah.
something out and you're just like, oh my God, it's 2 a.m. and I can't sleep because this person they commented on my video noticed this thing that I was praying no one would notice.
Dude, I'm done. I think I can't remember what video it was. It was like 30 minutes about going on, kind of like, you have passion for X-Men, obviously, right? Whatever it is. If I'm passionate about something, people can tell, man, he really likes this story.
Sure.
So I'm going on about the story for 30 something minutes. And then somebody, 2 weeks ago, left a comment like, I can't believe you said this instead of this. I can't remember what the mistake was. And I was like, in my head, I'm like, you just watched 30 minutes of me just spilling out all this information, and all you caught was that one mistake.
Right?
Dang it, but you're right.
That's
the worst part. But they
it's
were
like
right.
it's like being a stand-up comedian and you focus on that one person that doesn't laugh. No matter what you say,
Yep,
your best
yep.
material, they just will not laugh. And that is the person who you are suddenly trying to please.
Right. What? I don't care about this guy. Why am I losing sleep over that?
Right. Well,
Yeah.
I don't want to take up too much of your time. We do still have a few more questions. Would you mind getting
No,
through
go
those?
ahead, man. I'm good.
Awesome.
I'm having fun. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm very glad to hear that. Tyler, you got that?
Yeah, I'll get Amin's question here. So Amin asked, "What was the first collected edition that made you feel, well, this wasn't worth my money at all?" And then he says, "P.S. I need that Bloodlines omnibus."
No.
Oh, Bloodlines. Dude, that would take 2 Omnis, man. It was just like 64-page annuals that were awful. But I'm with you. I'd be all over that too. Oh man. I I think for me that I was like, oh, this is really bad. Because I think you go through streaks of like, wow, this stuff is so good, and then you get a new creative team, and you're like, what happened? We had a good thing going. I think it was one of the Superman trade paperbacks that I got. No,
JMS.
it was JLA. It was JLA Pain of the Gods by Chuck Austin. I remember thinking Ron Garney's artwork and trees died to make this like happen, and it was just awful. I don't think if that was the first one, but it's definitely up there. Now, this is coming from a guy that actually likes Avengers: The Crossing and Batman Year 2. Loves those stories. So I know I'm also a fan of bad stories. But yeah, Pain of the Gods was pretty bad. That was a bad one. It was a bad collection. And I was so happy to get it because I was like, oh, I gotta get all these. I was trying to think of something that was out of print that I went out of my way to try to find. It took me years to find, and then I was like, oh, this was awful, but I had to have it. I can't think of anything, but I think Pain of the Gods is one of them that I was like, oh, it's really bad.
It says something about me where it's like, oh, I've never even read that before, but now I kind of want to.
You should judge it for yourself. That's what I always
I
tell
like-
people.
I
Just
like
because I
Ron
don't,
Garney a lot, so.
you're not going to.
Oh my God. That's a lot of money to plunk down for a bad book. That's the thing. That's the only thing with Omnibuy. And like I don't have a lot of ones that I bought blind. Most of the time it's stuff I've already read because I'm kind of comfortable in the quality.
Yeah.
But every now and then you end up buying something sight unseen and you're like, oh, this wasn't good. I have a great example. I bought 10 of Swords, the Krakoa event, and I bought it when it was put out by Amazon pre-order before it was available anywhere, and it was half price. So I got it for $50. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe
it's out
my
of print
luck.
now. It's out of print.
Wow, there you go. And mine is still in wrapper. But
Can't imagine why.
I read the event and I was like, oh my God, I despise this. I can't believe I just bought this in advance. And then it came to my front door and I opened the package and I can't remember what's going to be in it. And I'm so excited to open it. And it's fucking 10 of Swords. And I'm like, no.
Oh, yeah. I was expecting more hack and slash action than some of those particular
Dinner
tournament
parties.
I was like, I mean, to be fair, it's kind of whimsical, like the original Excalibur, so I can see its charm. Part of it I did dig, though. I really like the build up to it. That was cool.
Yeah.
Like,
There were cool parts.
and there were some really awesome, but then some moments I was like, oh, a marriage? That's okay. That's so random, man. Yeah. So some X-Men have probably like broken my heart, like, Cyclops versus a bunch of crows, things like that. I'm like, oh, this is what I've been waiting for to read. Oh man, this is pretty bad. I didn't have a problem with X of 12 of sword. What the heck? 10 of sword. 10
Ten
of
of
sword.
Swords.
Part
Yeah.
of the
I
bit.
didn't have a big problem with that one. Other things I was like Hickman's Inferno I thought was awesome, except for one part that I was like, oh, there is no coming back for that character because wow. And then Death and Lives of Wolverine.
Yeah.
When that same character does something
Yeah.
else,
Yeah.
like, oh, they are really, really letting you know this character's evil now. Okay.
She just grew a twirly mustache out of nowhere. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was
Sean,
the time.
Sean, good news for you. I think Ten of Swords apparently, according to Omnibo, is over $200 now.
Oh, wow.
I wouldn't
Slap
know.
that
That's
shit
not
on
my
eBay.
That's not my channel. I don't keep up with prices.
It's not my channel either, and I don't even like. It's nice to know, but I would never sell it. I buy it to buy it. I'm
Spoken
glad.
like a true X-Man.
Right, like I'm not gonna sell that.
I crap on Chuck Austin's and Peter Milligan's X-Men, but I'd buy the crap out of that omnibus.
See,
They won.
gotta have it. Gotta
get
have it.
Man, my first omnibus was X-Statics.
Oh, did you wait? Had you read it before?
No, I was just a real big All Red fan. So I was like, all right, I need to pick this up.
Did you like it or not like it?
I did. I did. I like
Okay.
it. Yeah.
I
got like
love that
half
book.
off too, so that
I
helped.
love 3/4 of that book, and then by the
Sure.
time it was done, I was like,
Sure.
okay, it needs to be done. But I really like that book.
Still haven't gotten to that. Tyler, you want to get to another question?
Yeah. So Michael Nadeau says, I was gonna ask if is there a specific omnibus you like, Omar, because of the extras in it?
I think people don't like this one, and I get it because it has like half the book is extras. But I love extras, like, which is why I have to get like special edition versions of movies. Uh, Miracle Man has a lot of cool extras. A lot of cool extras. Like half the book is nothing but extras. And I like looking at the behind the scenes or the original script or the sketches or the way the pages originally looked when they were printed in comic book format. I thought that those are some really cool extras. I like handbook stuff too, like Annihilation has. They scattered a handbook across that one. Um yeah. Yeah, so I gotta go with Miracle Man probably. There's a lot of extras in that one.
Here's a good one from a name I haven't seen before. So welcome to the channel, News Pui channel.
Oh, yeah, that's my dude. What's up, man?
Awesome. They say to all of you, what is something you read and either didn't like or weren't impressed with, and then reread sometime later, and now you enjoy it? It's a good question.
Oh, for me, it's V for Vendetta.
Hmm.
Like, I didn't like it
Oh.
until I was in my 40s. I read that when I was a teenager, and I'm like, I don't get it. Then I read it in my 20s when I came back to comics, and I was like, still don't get it. I went to see the movie, and I'm like, oh, the movie's really cool. And then I read it again, yeah, I think a couple of months ago, whenever they reprinted the Absolute Edition. Maybe because I got, I don't know, maybe I just needed to be the right age. So yeah, V for Vendetta. Loved it.
Mine is Preacher, actually. I don't think I appreciated Steve Dillon when he was around, which sucks. But once I like got back into that, I was like, oh no, this is some masterful stuff. Even like the Deadpool stuff he did. I wasn't too big into that, but like I can look back on it now and be like, man, Steve Dillon was something else, man. So
I love Preacher.
This is
Just got
tough.
so many layers, man. Like it's
yeah,
blasphemous,
yeah.
but there's one of the best romance comics ever.
Preacher's a romance comic. That's a hole for me.
Oh yeah, I mean, that's what the
Yeah.
point of it is, right? I don't want to spoil what happens, but it's beautiful. I love it.
I don't think I have a good answer to this question, unfortunately, because I tend to not go back to things that I've read that I didn't like. So if I know I didn't like something, I generally just leave it alone. I think there are books that I think I'm going to reflect on better if I get back to them. One of those is Fear Itself, the Marvel event. And I've been itching to reread Civil War 2 because I know what everybody says about it, but A, that David Marquez art is hot fire, and B, I just have a feeling I'm going to appreciate it more now for some reason. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, I don't know if there's an appreciation like going back and reading Civil War 2. It was pretty bad. But I'm also not a fan of Civil War, so
Civil War is my favorite event.
Oh wow.
like you love that event? Oh, that's cool, man.
I don't know
Yeah.
if I'd be here without Civil War because like that was what was like, oh, comics can do this. I didn't know comics could do this.
Yeah, I love the artwork. I think Steve McNiven's amazing. I just wasn't the biggest fan of the story, but if you like it, that's all that matters.
Cale, you have one?
I finally figured it out. It was Strange Adventures.
That's a great one.
I
That is
hated that book as it came out. I hated it. I felt like as it came out monthly, I felt like it was paced badly and I couldn't remember anything that happened. And the art obviously was phenomenal. And they were, Gerard's and Shaner were doing stuff that was, if you ask me, well beyond what Tom King is doing. But that elevated the book. But I just could not wrap my head around everything that was happening all at once. And then we did a book club on it not that long ago. And it's by far one of my favorite Tom King books.
Yeah,
Wow.
Strange Adventures was great, but I remember reading it week to week and we didn't like it.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Sean, you
I
mind
think sometimes things read better in collected edition. I think sometimes that I think I've stopped reading single issues around that time because I was like, well, I think this will read better when it comes out in trade.
And I think a lot of writers write better that way or write for that.
Yes, I agree.
Tom King especially. We got a $4.99 super chat from Uncanny Suit 97. What's up, Uncanny? He says, Omar's the man. Let me say, as someone moving right now, these Omnis are kicking my ass. Thanks for the back pain, Omar.
They do. Even if you're hiring movers, you still got to put the books in there. Woo!
Oh, Omar,
Lift with your knees.
in-
Don't forget to lift with your knees.
in the lead up to
yeah.
this episode, Omar, everyone in our Discord was being like, "Oh yeah, Omar, I gotta thank that guy for my wallet being lighter." Multiple
I'm so
people.
sorry.
Yeah.
But at least your soul is happier, right? Reliving some of these old stories. That's great.
There you go. And Omnibo with the
My dude
$2
Omnibus.
Sorry?
Australian $2, I think.
Yeah.
He's from Australia. I love that guy.
Oh, another
right.
one of your listeners. Beautiful.
Wow.
60 likes. Caress that like button, viewers. I love listeners like this who go out of their way to make sure that everybody hits the like button and everybody subscribe. That is the way you guys can pay it forward. Absolutely. Thank you for that.
There's a really good question. I don't mind answering. I'm sorry, I was looking at your chat and let me make
First
sure.
of all, how dare you?
Sorry. I don't want to take over your show, I swear.
No, please.
Because I can't highlight anything. But it was Adam Smith talking about speaking of not being a ship. How do you balance honest reviews with being sponsored? That is that's a question. I'm sorry. That is a comment I see a lot of throughout the years, no matter what, there are people that aren't going to like you, and that's okay. Like I learned a long time ago that not everybody has to like me, and I'm okay with that. And I think I see that a lot. It used to be the Marvel Masterworks forum, like some of my viewers would share what they were saying, and then it became Reddit, and then Facebook groups. But it doesn't matter. So what I've always done on my channel is kind of taking myself out of the equation when it comes to doing overviews, and that was long before I was sponsored. Like if people wanted to know my thoughts, I had old reader, new reader, where people came in where I shared my thoughts on things, and I don't shy away from sharing my thoughts on storylines. I mean, I just told Sean that one of his favorite stories is one of my least favorite stories, but we're not reviewing that book right now. I don't shy away from, like when people ask me, but when I'm announcing a book for a company that is paying me money, people are like, "Oh man, you get excited over everything." I'm like, "Well, what company is going to sponsor you if you're like, all right, I guess coming out in January of 2025
Right.
is Ultimate Spider-Man 4?" Because I don't give a crap about Ultimate Spider-Man, but I know people do. I mean, no. No, you have to have a level of excitement, and the level of excitement that I get is from my viewers that, "Oh my god, I've been waiting for Ultimate Spider-Man to come out in omnibus format." Just because I don't like something doesn't mean that somebody out there doesn't. Like, there are moments like that when I think, like, well, I mean, like, you're a smart human being, you're reading comics, you have to have a level of professionalism when it comes to announcing things, especially if at the very beginning I'm saying this video is sponsored by Marvel Comics. They're not gonna sponsor somebody that's like, I guess somebody asked for this. Well, here it is. Web of Spider-Man. You know what I'm saying? Like, it just,
Yeah.
um, so I think people know when I'm genuinely excited about something though, like that Doom 2099 omnibus. I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe we're getting the entire Doom in one omnibus. I I think there's a difference between that and then carrying a level of professionalism when it comes
Hmm.
to like announcing books. So how I balance it out is like doing overviews. I've never even, I mean, DC doesn't send me anything. I do my own thought like overviews on DC, and I still leave myself out of the equation. I did an over. If you want to see the level of professionalism that I have, go and watch my overview of Identity Crisis, which is to me like one of the worst DC events ever. But the deluxe edition came out, and I know people like it, so I took myself out of. I always take myself out of the equation.
Hmm.
Like this is what happens here, and this is what the artwork looks like. Rag Morales, I think, um, I think that comes just from years of doing it that way. Long before I was sponsored by anybody, but long before people were saying. I remember one time on one of my, I think it was a Conan video, this guy was going off on me. He was like, "Dude, you're such a shield for Marvel. I can't believe you didn't mention all these things in the like." And I was like, "Well, I this video was not sponsored by Marvel. Marvel didn't send me this. This is before Marvel even talked to me. This is actually my own thoughts and my overview." Um, and well, I can't remember what he said. And B, I didn't notice what you just mentioned. But thank you for watching. you, doing this for so long, putting out videos every day, you are going to see comments like that. And most of the time, one of my favorite viewers, my dude Hip Hop Man, he was like, what I used to do, probably I haven't done it in years, but I used to pin the stupidest comments and I would reply back just to troll them back. Dude, it worked. Like, let me tell you, 9 times out of 10, those people would delete their stupid comment
Yep.
because they knew they were being stupid. Sometimes people would double down and be like, no, this is the way it is. And I'm like, cool, let's keep going. And I remember he said to me, he was like, man, don't waste that stuff. Like, he's like, I know you're funny and I think you're funny, but you're wasting energy on them negative fools. And if you just ignore them, don't give them attention. And I haven't done it since. And that was the best advice I got about his comments. Because you're right. There is a negativity that even though I'm being funny about it, like there is a sense of negativity about replying back to somebody and putting the highlight on them, even though I did. Oh man, I was funny about some of those. My favorite one was the dude, you have single-handedly destroyed the collected editions market. And I would say my reply was like, step 1, create a YouTube channel in 2016. Step 2, find out I can't remember the guy's name, what books he's into. Step 3, get in contact with Marvel Comics. Step 4, destroy every sense of enjoyment that he's gotten out of collected editions. And like, I kind of went back and forth with that guy. I think he was talking about reprints because he held his books at such a high value. It's like these books were worth something at one time. Then you come around and you told Marvel what to reprint. I think it's ridiculous. And I'm like, you do realize that these are reprints, right? Like, the irony of you yelling at me about a reprint because they're being reprinted, it is the most ridiculous statement I've seen. And I see a lot of stupid statements in my comments.
That's
Like,
hilarious.
what?
But
But yeah, it's it's things like that. So I take myself out of the equation, but I am honest. Like if I catch things, like I did a Daredevil omnibus reprint. Marvel kept the same misprint that they kept in the second printing in there, so I brought it up. Right. So you have to, that's the thing. It's like you have to be, and that's why you have to read these books
Right.
because and then sometimes I don't catch it. Like I didn't catch I think it was World War Hulk, but it was a misprint in the original printing and a misprint again. And that's probably due to the fact that I'm not the biggest fan of the crossovers in that. And I was just kind of like, okay, I got to speed read this. So I didn't catch that misprint. So I don't catch them all, but I do try and I do point them out if I do catch them. So, you have to be honest with that part. Like, hey, this is bad binding, or this is the type of binding. I do leave. I like people have asked me, like, why don't you tell people what not to buy? This is a crap story. Or why don't you tell people to buy this? Like, because if people bought what I told them to buy, you would have like reprints of Avengers: The Crossing, like all the time. You would have an absolute Batman year 2. Like, who wants to buy what I recommend? I leave it up to you to buy what you want. It is your
Mhm.
money. And if you don't like what you see, then don't buy it. That's it. I think people are smart enough to know that now. Because I think immediately when they see like, oh, this guy's getting sent books, he's gonna sell out. Like, man, I've been doing this before people even sent me anything. I've been doing it the same way. I used to be funnier. I would pin comments. I don't do that anymore.
Well, I mean, without your channel, who knows if we would have gotten that ROM omnibus coming out?
God,
So
that's been a long time
I
coming.
know. and the
There's
Legends is
that's
coming
been a
out now
long.
too.
There's
Yeah.
another one that's coming out. I haven't said anything because I signed an NDA. I can't. That I'm like, been in the years, like years in the works, and I can't wait to announce it.
I can only imagine the things you know about that we don't.
It's that I find to be one of the hardest things is like going to conventions and like meeting creators. Like I remember meeting Howard Mackey, and I was like, I really want to tell him about his Ghost Rider omnibus. But damn it, I can't. So,
Why do you know and he doesn't though, right? Like
well, that's
isn't
the
that
thing. Like creators don't know. I remember creators like sometimes tweeting, going, "Oh, like who was it? It was Peter Tomat. No, it was Chip Zdarsky. He's like, "Oh, I find out from Omar how like my omnis are coming out," and I don't know. I don't know. It's just DC and Marvel usually does that. Like unless you're Jonathan Hickman, who can make all kinds of calls, who can be like, actually, let's map it this way. Let's put the covers in the back and put the Jonathan Hickman stuff in the front. And I mean, he does. Like that Secret Wars omnibus was a big Hickman thing. He was like, oh no, you put New Avengers and Avengers, but that's already been released in your Hickvengers. I don't care. I'm Jonathan Hickman. You put Avengers and New Avengers, and that leads into Secret Wars. That's how you make that omnibus.
I gotta get that. I gotta get that. Is at the tippy top of my list. I have to get that.
It's good if you haven't read it, especially with those Avengers that lead into it. Solid.
It's my favorite Avengers run, I think. Even more than Bendis, maybe. I go back and forth, but
It was a good one. I like that one.
yeah.
Um,
Amin with the 5 spot. Any new reading order in the making? Love those videos.
oh, thank you. Honestly, I started those because I myself I made videos. Again, I don't know how anybody else does their things, but I made videos that I would love to have seen when I was first collecting because it is so overwhelming and so confusing. And I was like, oh, I'm gonna do a quick X-Men reading order because people have been asking me. Bam, 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 bam. Then they wanted more. And I'm like, I'll make it a Spider-Man one and then Fantastic Four. And that kind of became a thing that kind of got people to watch my channel over like it just kept growing. So yes, there is more. I'll probably do the Krakoa era now that I think all the trades are out or coming out this month. So I'll probably revisit that because that's the one that gets asked about the most. Because as Sean said, like there is a huge demand for those books.
Yeah, absolutely. Atomic Hound with the 9.99. Thanks, Atomic Hound. He says, Omar, please explain why. Oh God, please explain why Annihilation should win the PALS Marvel Event Book Club vote this month. So we have a nomination process. We let anybody from anywhere nominate their favorite book for a given subject. In August, it's Marvel Events. And so we're getting YouTube
Wow.
comments, we're getting Discord comments, Patreon comments, everybody nominating their favorite events. I would say pretty by and large, Annihilation has been the most nominated. And so then what happens is it goes into a final four where the last four books, the most nominated four books, get chosen by our patrons, and the winner is the subject of the book club at the end of the month. So Atomic Count is essentially asking you why Annihilation should win the poll.
I happen to be a fan of it. I like Annihilation Conquest just a little bit more. But to me, that is the way you do an event. And it was the editors that came over from DC that took the exact formula that made Infinite Crisis work, and they had put it into a Marvel event, and it was Annihilation. So you have the kickoff with a one shot, you have the 4 miniseries that all of them kind of intertwine in a way, but you don't have to read all of them, that lead into the event, which is the formula for Infinite Crisis, which is why it worked here. It was the same formula, and it worked for both companies, and I love Annihilation because of that. I was like, oh, cool, Silver Surfer. Oh, cool, Super Skrull. I don't really care about that guy, but all right, let's read about him. And it was amazing. I loved it. I love Annihilation because when you get to Annihilation, it becomes less about like a character-driven event, like, oh, let's good guy, bad guy. It becomes more like a war journal. Like these people have been at war for a long time, and it's almost like done in like a war style journal. And I'm like, wow, that is really cool. And this is before DNA, right? Like people forget that DNA didn't kick off the Marvel Modern Cosmic era.
They did
Even
it?
though no, it was all Keith Giffen, and who was there? Simon Furman from Transformers fame. And DNA did do some of it, but Giffen's the guy that kind of brought it all together with the editors. And by the time Annihilation Conquest came out, that's when DNA came in, and oh man,
So
for Guardians, God, it's so good.
For a person who wants to buy, because I haven't read Annihilation, it's my biggest
Oh,
gap event wise at Marvel. For a person who wants to get into Annihilation, what is the way to read that right now, collected in print?
Omnibus. Yeah,
oh, okay.
Omnibus format.
It is okay. I wasn't sure if it was okay.
It's actually they're doing another printing of it, which brings like when I announced another printing of it, that's when I'm starting to feel old because that was my first announcement was I can't believe they're reprinting Annihilation, and now it's like I can't believe they're reprinting Annihilation again. Like,
you know that Dr. Manhattan meme?
Like, yeah. It's like, exactly. That's the way I felt, man. I was like, didn't I do this last year? Oh my God, that was 5 years ago. Like you start thinking about time like that, and it's like, yeah, where did the time go? But it's cool because I love when stories like that are reprinted. Gives people a chance. If new readers are coming in every year, they haven't had a chance to read. I see that frustration from older people that are collecting. They're like, why are they reprinting that? They shouldn't be wasting a spot. They should be printing new things because there's always new people collecting things. And I think it's important to keep those books in print. Yeah.
100%. That is a great point. And speaking of time flying, we are out of time. We want to respect Omar's weekend. He was gracious enough
I don't have weekends. Did you not hear what I said, man? I do this for a living.
Hey, you told us you have 2 daughters. That means that you have family time that is needed. Plus, you were just live for 2 hours before this, so I can only imagine how exhausted you are. I know how I feel after we do some of these marathons. But
I've had a lot of fun. Like genuinely, I've had a lot of fun with you guys. So thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you for saying that. I feel like we could talk for another 2 hours, quite frankly. And I would love to be able to bring you back at some point in the future.
Oh, please just shoot me a message and we will work something out. And I'd love for you guys to come on my show sometime to talk about we do like evergreen shows. Those are a lot of fun. Where you come in with like choices of like what book should be evergreen depending on the topic and stuff. But it's mostly about us just arguing because as comic fans we're passionate about our favorites and our things, right? That we know. So it's a lot of fun. I'd love to have you all on for that.
Yeah, please reach out. Thank you all for tuning in. We appreciate the fact that you came and showed up for Omar, showed up for us. Make sure you check out Near Mint Condition. It is a fantastic channel. The proof is in the pudding. I believe that the cream rises to the top. And when I tell you how hard it is, Omar elaborated a bit, but that was a microcosm of the effort it takes to show up every single week, to show up and edit every day. Talking is fun. What we're doing now is fun.
This is so easy.
Right?
I love this.
Right? Like, you don't, like, for you as a guest, you don't have to set up anything. You're not in charge of a stream. You get to just, but when you have to get into the edit and you have to do the work part, that's not fun. But here's a man who does it every single day, sometimes multiple times a day, and the cream rises to the top. That is why Near Mint Condition is one of the biggest channels on YouTube for comics, probably the biggest channel on YouTube for comics collecting that doesn't involve selling, which I dread those channels personally. I love what your message is. I love what you stand for. I think it's fantastic. Everybody who has subscribed to us should absolutely go subscribe to Near Mint Condition. If you do one thing today that I tell you to do, go subscribe to Near Mint Condition because Omar deserves it. Omar, thank you so much for coming. If you have any message that you want to leave the listeners with, please feel free.
Thank you. Thank you. Seriously. Thank you so much. This has been a blast, and I mean that. It's been a lot of fun. It's like, talking to friends, and it was really cool. The only message, crack those book open. Go read some books. Don't just put them out there for eye candy. Yeah, they look pretty, but they're meant to be read. Go read your books.
I love it. All right, we'll be back in just a moment. We're going to say goodbye to Omar off camera, and we will see you guys in a minute. Hey. We are back.
Whoa.
Hopefully you guys enjoyed that conversation. I know I did. 2 hours with the uncanny Omar. Phenomenal.
And I think he's not giving the uncanny part of his name enough credit.
Yeah. I love that. I think that's a really cool nickname.
Yeah.
I think the Uncanny Pal sounds even cool, but it just doesn't really describe what we are.
Yeah. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the conversation. Omar's great. Near mint condition is fantastic. Great channel. I've been watching a couple of years myself. But it was cool to have him join us and kind of, become a part of what we do. Like, there are only so many channels on YouTube who are making the kind of stuff that like I would watch, and Omar is one of them. Like, I'm not the biggest into Omnibus. Like, I buy them, but I'm not like, I don't have nearly what he has. But I appreciate the passion and I appreciate talent and skill. Like, when I'm looking at someone's YouTube channel, I'm not necessarily as worried about what they're talking about. I'm more worried about how they talk about it, how they, their work ethic. How often do you put out videos? How often do you go live? How many people watch you? Those kinds of things. And I can tell that he's doing stuff that is really connecting with people for a good reason.
What I like about Omar's channel too is that, like, it's one of the few comic book channels I actually watch because it's so niche and it's in the area of what we do, but it's not what we do.
Right.
So I always get like wary about listening to other podcasts or comic book things because I don't want that to get in my brain and then I might say something similar. It's like not giving a writer a script, then he might accidentally use it in something. So I try not to do that. Like, I'll listen to iFanboy after we've done Palace polls already for that week, just because I have to. But Omar, I don't handle any of that, so I get to watch all that stuff, and I enjoy that. So it's good.
Comic Hound says that was an excellent discussion. I really appreciate Omar giving us a peek behind the curtain. He's a busy guy and taking time to do this as well. Uncanny. Yeah, he was live literally right before us, and he, was gracious enough to be willing to come on here, and share his time and share his passion. For those of you who have been with us for some time and consider yourselves, fans, enjoyers of what we do here, our goal is to spread the word. And, I want us to be able to connect with these super talented, super popular YouTubers, because they're good people. And it's always great to have good people in the fold. You get to mix and match ideas. And even just listening to him talk, for me, on a technical behind the scenes level, is like, man, I just respect that grind level, And like, I think like we could do stuff together. We could actually make content together. We were talking a little bit behind the scenes, and it's like, wow, yeah, there's stuff here we can do together. But it's also about like, can we introduce ourselves to some of you who don't know us and only know Omar, or only know Sal from Comic Pop, or only know BJ from Comics Are Dope, and go, wow, Omar's dope. I love Omar. And here are the Comics Pals. They're kind of cool too. Let me see what they're about.
Speak for yourself, Sean. I don't think I'm that cool.
Well,
I'm great.
It was us, not me as an individual.
The Royal Pals, got it.
Yeah, exactly. And the missing Marco. Boss Rondier says, dope interview, guys. Tektronic says, what's up, fellas? Happy Saturday, everybody. Amin says, this is one of those episodes I'm gonna rewatch. Thank you.
Do you guys remember the first omnibus you ever got?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because mine wasn't that long ago.
My first ever was actually New X-Men by Grant Morrison. It was blind. I had never read it before. This would have been 2007. And it was a Christmas. It was my birthday gift that year. And I annihilated it. I loved it. It's phenomenal. Cale, what was yours?
I got the Jack Kirby Fourth World Omnibus maybe 3 years ago now. On 2 years ago now. Yeah. It was just in one of my home comic shops, and I had to lug it from Texas to England somehow.
Yeah.
And I texted my wife, I showed it to her, and she went, "Oh, you have to get that." And I said, "Excuse me?" Because that's not the response I ever get from my wife.
It's hilarious. Tyler, what was yours? Do you know?
Yeah, I mentioned it. It was Aesthetics. I picked it
Alright.
up from Newberry Comics on Newberry Street in Boston, in their clearance section. I saw it was half off. I saw it was Mike Allred, and I had been aware of who Dupe was, so I had to pick it up.
The Unstoppable Bar says, "Oh no, seems that I missed Omar." Bar, you just barely missed him. We just wrapped up a 2-hour conversation with Omar, so replay crew is always a thing, and if you want to run it back, but either way, thank you for being here. I like to think that Omar being so willing to hang out with us for such a long time, is indicative of the fact that he had a good time, and he did say that multiple times. So I think if he had a good time here with us, then you probably could too. That's sort of my thinking, right? Is like if we can get along and break bread and have a good time chatting, then this is probably an environment where you would feel comfortable with, because I'm a part of that community too. Like I'm a part of the near mint condition community. I'm a part of the comic pop community. I also just happen to have my own. You know what I'm saying? Like it's just like that. Michael Nadeau asks, when will BJ be on? BJ was on.
BJ's also got like an open invite at this point.
That's true.
BJ's family.
We should have had him replace Marco.
Permanently?
Oh, I mean,
Should I put up a poll for that?
Betray Marco with his own tool.
Boss Rondier says, that's how I discovered you guys. Randomly saw the Sal interview. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. There are quite a few people who reach out and say, hey, love the channel, found you guys via Sal. And that feels great. I know that the way that the algorithm functions, a lot of times we don't even get put in front of you guys.
Yeah.
And we could be the exact show you've been looking for, but you would never know because you haven't seen it. And so the hope is that, our brothers and sisters who do this so eloquently and so amazingly, like Omar and Sal and BJ, they can kind of like bring us up a little bit by just coming on here. We're not asking for anything. If you come on here and hang out with us, that does a lot. Let me tell you something. Sal coming on here did more for us than probably Jeff Johns coming on.
that's probably true. That's probably true.
And that's crazy. That is crazy.
We got a lot of traction from Jeff Johns, but we did get a lot more from Sal.
And the other benefit too of it is like that if it builds us up, it builds our community up, and then their community start intertangling. People start to get to talk to one another, and then like on our Discord, we have people talking about DC 1 million right now. Like, okay, that's a blind spot for me. But the fact that you can build community, and then people from all over the world, honestly, get to communicate about their shared interest of this very niche hobby it's really what it is. Even though like
Niche of a niche.
sure, even though Deadpool Wolverine huge in the grand scheme of things, what we do in terms of reading comic books is niche. So being able to kind of facilitate those relationships, even outside of our show that we do twice weekly, Thursday, Saturday, is I think one of the most rewarding parts of it, if not the most rewarding.
Definitely. It is so much fun to be able to like talk shop with someone like BJ or even Chillmonger. We go back and forth, about analytics. Getting to mix it up with you guys on Discord, like, dude, so I have so much fun. I don't talk to people in my real life about comics anymore. I used to be so desperate for someone to talk to me about comics, and now I have a community, that we're a part of. I don't need it anymore. Like I don't need to have those conversations in person. I get them with all of you.
Yeah, you don't need to talk to anyone at Midtown Comics.
No, I don't. I do not. Aussieverse says, we'd love to have you on Aussieverse, guys. Show Australia what you're all about. See, like that's it right there. And I would love to, Aussieverse. If you reach out, contact at thecomicspals.com. If you send us an email, we can link up and we can make that happen. But I love the fact that like, what other reason would I have to go on an Australian podcast? Or what other situation would I be in where I would have friends and people that engage with this from all over the entire planet Earth. I don't know Australians. I want to, but I don't. But now I do because of these things.
You sort of knew a New Zealander for a bit, but he decided to defect. So,
Oh, Cale. Right.
Cale. Yeah, I'm talking about Cale.
The Unstoppable Bar says, so everyone here are nerds or something like that? Is that the deal? Oh, y'all speak for yourself. I'm cool as hell.
That's kind of the gimmick around these parts. Kind of, sort of. Jim S says, I'm here because Omar said he was doing this show. I love the live stream, so that's a sub for you guys. Thank you so much, Jim. Really appreciate it. And again, shout out to Omar. Like, we have a fraction of Omar's audience. So for him to decide to come on here and do this is actually huge. You know, like, he doesn't have to do that. That's free publicity for us and people from his audience that, you know, aren't going to choose us first necessarily, but maybe will make us their second home on YouTube, you know? And I'm happy with that.
The summer home, the side house.
Yeah. Yep.
I'll be
Exactly.
the garage that, you know, the dad gets to do his hobby in. You know, I don't even need to be the home.
That's when you get locked out of home for whatever reason. Maybe you're a kid and, you know, you didn't bring your keys, or, you know, the wife is unhappy and so you can't get in, and you say, well, where's my second home? Let me go to my buddy's house down the street. You know, let me go hang out with my friends. This could be that.
I thought you were saying, like, we're the other family, like your mistress's family.
Whoa!
That's where I thought you were going, but
Well,
not against that either. Not against that.
I mean, it's not right.
Polly's in right now, right?
We could.
Oh my God. Steve Matthews says, as Sean said in his soapbox on Patreon this week, the Comics Pals are trying to put out positivity and love for comics, and that is special. Yeah, thank you for saying that. I appreciate it. You know, I just believe that if you love something, you should love it. And when you talk about it, it should sound like it's coming from a place of passion and love. That doesn't mean that you have to, like, only say positive things. I definitely don't only say positive things. It's just that there's nothing we're ever talking about that I hate. We're only ever talking about a medium that I love. The medium is comics. There could be individual things within that I don't like, but the medium as it exists, I love. Yeah. If I didn't, I have no business being. And there are a lot of other channels that don't have business talking about comics because they clearly do not love comics. And again, it doesn't mean you love every comic you read every day. Go ahead, please.
I was going to make the metaphor of it's like cheese. You don't have to like every single type of cheese. But cheese is great. And then I remembered Sean can't have cheese. It'll kill him. Just like comic books. Just like comic books.
I love mozzarella sticks. You put a mozzarella stick in front of me, it's very difficult for me to avoid. But if I don't avoid it, I will die. So
much like X-Men in general.
Oh my goodness. Amin says, I 100% feel the same. No family members, no coworkers. This community is the only place I can talk about it, and I really appreciate it. That is beautiful. And you know what Amin is talking about is not just our live streams, but also our Discord server, you know, and where the only real rule is be cool and be chill, you know, and have a love for comics. If you're that, then you should absolutely be joining our Discord server.
If you listen to us here and you're in the chat, you're only getting half of the conversation.
That is a fact. And in fact, I'm going to share a link to our Discord server right now for anybody who may want to hang out with us on that side of things. There it is. The Unstoppable Bar says, so to whoever doesn't know me, I'm the biggest Harley Quinn fan, and I tend to talk about her too much. I tend to promote female characters and female creators, and I love getting on Omar's nerves. Well, that's awesome. We had Kelly Thompson on the show not that long ago. So we love women creators as well. We had Heather Antos on, which was fantastic. Really loved that conversation. Tilly Walden was amazing. BOP, Birds of Prey, is probably my favorite team book right now.
It was The Comics Pal's favorite book of last year.
Yeah.
Good chance it'll be this year too.
Now, Harley Quinn, this is where we deviate because the Harley Quinn book, I'm sorry to tell you, I can't do it. I tried it. I was really excited. Timmy Howard, Sweeney Boo. I was like, okay, this is great. How could I go wrong? I went wrong. I went wrong. And Atomic Hound in the chat is, this universe, this community's biggest Harley Quinn fan, and I'm pretty sure he dropped it too because he said it was radioactive.
You ever read Stefan Sajic's Harleen, Sean?
No.
Phenomenal book. I highly
Bought it.
recommend that. Oh, you have it?
Oh yeah.
You could do that in a quick hour, probably.
I could.
Could. Yeah. Capital C.
Yeah.
gotta
Capital
have a quick
COULD. I have to my left a massive amount of single issues. For those of you who don't know me, I buy way too many comics. And I've been in the process of organizing and catching up with stuff that I've been behind on. And when I tell you that it has been a Herculean effort, I am not kidding. When we did the Stakoa, for all the books I had over the 5 years of the Krakoan age, unbelievable. Unbelievable. Tyler, what's happened?
I have a D23 alerts on right now, and they just announced that the X-Men will wear Grant Morrison's costumes in season 2 of 97.
Sick.
Oh, okay. All right.
Random, but sick.
Sure.
I really expected that to go a different way, and I had to process the fact that it was X-Men 97 before I.
Sure. Yeah. The animation panel's going on right now.
Yeah.
Sean, because I haven't checked it. I didn't check in with you on Thursday. Did you catch up with anything this week that you like?
That I like?
Sure. No. Let me reiterate. Did you catch up with anything this week?
I will answer that because I did. And then we'll hit the comments and then we'll close out. But so I caught up with Captain America by JMS. The book that we all joked about me never reading. I finally caught up to issue 11 where it's at right now. And you know what? I didn't like it.
Same, dude. I was bummed.
Yeah, I didn't like it. And then I looked at the price. And I was like, wait, $4.99 times 11? What am I doing here?
Yeah.
That's like a full-on video game.
Mm-hmm.
Well, not in this economy.
No, that's like 7.
I could have nearly bought the Omnibus. I'm probably about to owe Kefis with that money.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, so I caught up with Cap. What else did I catch up with? I caught up. I had stopped reading. I caught up with Miles and then I fell off again. Turns out that the Blood Hunt tie-ins do address the fact that he had a vampire situation in the prior issues. Thankfully, I was afraid they wouldn't actually tackle that, so they did. But that's been good. I've been enjoying the Miles book a lot as well. And I think that's it. I think that's all that I've gotten into so far that I feel like talking about.
I caught up to 2 years of Nightwing last week. Tom Taylor's run, and that's just good, dude. I get it.
Were you a fan already? You liked it already.
I read like the
didn't you?
first 10 issues, I think.
Yeah.
And I liked it a lot. Yeah. It's consistent. Yeah. It's one big story that's told throughout. They don't really touch on the whole I'm like I got to the part where it's like past Dark Crisis, like just past Dark Crisis. And
Oh, yeah.
they're barely touching that, but yeah, no, I still really enjoy it.
Ah, man, I just can't. That's one of those books that I don't even have the backlog of because I just know it's not for me.
That's
I
fair.
hate that, but I just know it.
It's good looking.
Bruno Redondo. I have ready to read Something is Killing the Children. I have that all stacked up and ready. And I have Justice League by Scott Snyder all stacked up and ready. So those are my next big to reads.
You get to read about the World Forger, the third brother. Yeah.
It was Anti-Monitor, Monitor, and the World Forger. That's what you
And
said, right?
Forger.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Awful.
Why,
I'm real curious on your thoughts on Snyder's Justice League, because I kind of liked it, but I'm curious to see what you think.
And why Snyder's Justice League?
Oh, because I just
Is
love.
it just because it's there?
Yeah.
Is it? Yeah. Okay.
I love Scott, and I remember being really excited when that was starting.
Yeah.
And so I want to get through it. That era of DC is one where I feel like I was just really kind of checked out. I was still doing the shows, but I wasn't reading a lot for myself. And so if we weren't talking about it, I pretty much wasn't reading it. I was still buying it, but I wasn't reading it. And now that I'm into it again, I'm like hungry to catch up on all this stuff that I was excited about.
One more question here, Sean. This is from Bazran Deer. Hey guys, what's the best way to support you? Patreon or YouTube channel membership?
That's a great question, Boss Rundeer, and I appreciate so much you asking it. The answer is Patreon. Patreon is the best way to support us. And I also think, I love and appreciate all of our YouTube channel members as well. But I think that through the Patreon, because that's really where we got started as far as, you guys supporting us. And that's where all of our infrastructure really is. If you want to join the Palsverse, that's the way to do that. So if you want to get your shout out on the show and get an origin and a superhero nickname or a supervillain nickname, that would be the way to do it. You guys that heard how the show started before, you will know that's what we do. So if you go back through our backlog, you're going to hear some of those origins, and I think it's a lot of fun. Our community seems to enjoy it. So thank you for asking. Let's hit some more comments before we cut out of here. Thank you to everybody who stuck around. You guys are great. Omnibus says, for anyone who doesn't know me, I'm the overexcited, massively energetic host of the Aussieverse, along with a couple mates, and we love collected editions. Soon to have the Comics Pals. Hell yeah. I love that. That's awesome.
The Unstoppable Bar says, I'm currently reading Poison Ivy, Wonder Woman, Birds of Prey, Absolute Power, Helen of Windhorn, Red Before Black, and World's Finest.
Red Before Black was the book that
Stephanie
Tyler,
Phillips
that was the Stephanie Phillips book that you asked me about this week. How was it? I didn't get to read it yet.
You asking me or the chat?
No, chat.
Okay, yeah, I didn't read it. Yeah.
What else do we have?
Hound
Cosmos
is reading. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Hound is currently reading Green Lantern, Superman, the Energon Universe, Ghost Machine, and more.
Green Lantern. Let's go. That's another thing I
Very
just caught
good.
up with.
It's very good, dude.
Hell yeah.
Because I wasn't too hot on Jeremy Adams' Flash. But Green Lantern, next level.
And even the beginning of Adam's Green Lantern with just after, I think it was just after Dark Crisis, and then between Dark Crisis and Night Terrors, they had that 2-issue stutter start or whatever, and it's like, what are we doing here?
It started off great, and then it went right into Night Terrors and was like, what the fuck happened? But ever since then, I feel like the book has been fantastic. Cosmo asked a great question. Is the book club Final Four poll going to go up soon? Yes, it will go up. It will go up Monday.
Do we have the 4 yet?
No, I haven't actually gotten to the counting, but
I could assume Annihilation's on there at least.
Yeah, Annihilation is certainly on there. There's no doubt about that. Cody Stork says, did we already know there was an X-Men 97 season 2? Yeah, I believe we know there are 3 seasons that they know they're going to do. So 2 more to come. And then if there is clamoring for more, I can imagine they're going to give us more.
There was also just an announcement for who's going to do season 3.
There was, yeah.
And it was somebody I recognized, but I don't recall the name.
Unstoppable Bar asks, what are the current ongoing series you've been following? That question would take me quite some time to answer, but I can give you 5. I think we can all probably come up with 5. We don't need to talk about them, but we can just give 5 that we're enjoying right now.
Yeah.
Birds of Prey, loving it. Rook Exodus is phenomenal. Kaya, I say it every time. Buy Kaya. If you're not buying it, it's unbelievably good. Fantastic Four is great. And my last one, Grommets has been really good by Rick Remender.
I'll throw out. I really like Transformers right now. Grimm at Boom by Stephanie Phillips, real good. Vengeance of the Moon Knight. I am caught up with all of Jed McKay's Moon Knight, loving it. And then Jed McKay's Doctor Strange, also fantastic. And at DC, what am I reading at DC that I like? Tom King's Wonder Woman. I like it. Sue me.
I would like to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do I read?
Hopefully comics.
I don't tend to. I mean, I read ongoing stuff for the show, but I don't tend to remember it. Powerpuff Girls is what's standing out to me at the minute,
The book you read one issue of, yeah.
and I listen.
you like
I
it?
fucking loved it.
Oh yeah.
Scarlet.
Mm-hmm.
Anything Kelly Thompson's got hand in, I am all over.
What did you guys make of TMNT? Chat. I saw Cale's shirt. It made me think of the book. I was like, oh, I like that book. What'd you think of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, if you guys got to it? Steve Matthews says, after the recent Rom V interview with you guys, I've finally gotten around to checking out The Many Deaths of Lila Starr this weekend. Really enjoy it. And the art, get Rom V back on soon. New Gods. Dude, I'm kicking myself that we had Rom V on before the New Gods, and we knew that was going to happen. We could have waited 1 week.
It was a week before the big announcement.
Didn't we even mention it to him live?
You have to.
Yeah,
you
he just
have
stared
to
at us.
imagine. Yeah. Have to imagine he got busy right after that announcement.
Yeah, for sure.
Immortal Thor, yes, great call. And that's one I enjoy every time it comes out. Omar kept talking about the resurrection of Magneto. I think about that book all the time. Still.
Unreal book.
Yeah.
I think, people talk about Marvel and DC. Dude, my YouTube feed is filled with other comic book channels. And when I look at these titles sometimes, or I throw them on to see what they're up to, and it's just like, this sucks, that sucks, this sucks, that sucks, this sucks. Marvel sucks. DC doesn't have any good books. I'm like, what are you talking about?
You ain't reading.
Yeah.
What are you talking about? I'm not high on Marvel right now. I have been on the record with that. But I could still point to you about 5 to 10 Marvel titles that I think are the cream of the crop. Everybody hates Amazing Spider-Man. I'm the biggest Amazing Spider-Man fan on this platform. I love Amazing Spider-Man.
Yep.
There's just no way that it's all bad. It's not possible.
And then you read JMS's Captain America, and then
It's not all going to be winners,
Sure.
right? I don't like a thing that Jed McKay has written other than Avengers 17 in the last 3 years.
Yeah.
But that's okay. Because other people clearly do like what he's doing. I don't have to like it. One bad Marvel book equals Marvel in shambles. Exactly. That's what Amin says.
Hound says, I read Immortal Thor at bedtime. It's the perfect cure for insomnia.
Ooh.
I get that.
Nice House Deluxe Edition. Can we get a book club? If you guys put it on the poll when there's a poll that makes sense for that, yeah. I think that would be a great book club.
It reads tremendous collected.
I believe it. Atomic or Unstoppable Bar says, I don't like channels that focus so much on negativity and all the things that they don't like. It's the cheapest engagement bait. And one thing I notice about those channels is that they are generally selling a comic book that is inferior to the ones that they are bashing.
come read my Grifterverse comic that I.
That's a funny name for a spoof, like a spoof on what they do.
Grifterverse.
You couldn't even do that because it's Grifter's a real guy.
That is also
That's true. That's true.
Cosmo says, I checked out TMNT after having never read any before, and it didn't really sell me.
Oh. Well, there's a backlog of great TMNT books. Sophie Campbell's run just ended, which was by all accounts fantastic. Izzy's issue says, don't forget, lately the Discord has been having unofficial mini book clubs or pre-book club voice chats, and it's consistently been tons of fun. That is absolutely right.
Yes.
That's why I shared the Discord link a little bit earlier. If you're new to us, you should really consider joining our Discord server because it is so much fun. All right, we're gonna leave it there, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. The next time we will be live with you is this Thursday at 6 p.m. for Pals Pulls. That is our weekly podcast where we review everybody's favorite thing, comics. We get into the new weekly books that are releasing, and I'll give you guys a peek at what we're going to be talking about this coming week. So this week we've got Ultimates number 3. Oh shoot, I didn't even realize that was coming out.
Hell yeah.
Ultimates number 3, X-Men number 2, X Factor number 1, Johnny Quest number 1.
Oh, ho, ho.
My boy Haji, let's go.
Let's
couldn't leave that
go.
And Geiger number 5. So
Oh, all right.
pretty good roster of books, I think. And we hope to see you guys there. Thank you so much for joining us. Our normal live time for this show is 10:15 a.m. Eastern on Saturdays. So that's when we will be live next Saturday. But until then, thank you all so much for joining us. We appreciate you. Take care of yourselves and each other.